Chapter 292. Ahura was also known as the Emperor of the Underworld, the King of the Underworld, and the Lord of the Underworld. He ruled over the 6 realms of the Underworld, and his status was similar to the Lord of the Spirit Realm. His cultivation was close to that of a perfected immortal. Unfortunately, the Lord of Ahura led the Ahura world to attack the spiritual realm. Just as they were about to conquer the spiritual realm, 3 true immortals descended upon the world. The Ahura king fought against the 3 of them alone, causing the world to change color. In the end, his soul was destroyed. Yi Chen only found out about these secrets when he became the Heavenly Emperor. The master of the Ahura realm had existed much longer than him. Su Yuhan was the reincarnation of such a person. Judging from her aura, her cultivation base was higher than Yi Chen's current cultivation base. If they were to fight, Yi Chen would definitely not be her match. She seemed to have sensed his worry. Su Yuhan said bitterly, "Don't worry. My soul has already been destroyed. I'm just a remnant soul now. I won't take over your woman. In reality, I don't have the ability to do that. I'm just an existence that should have dissipated in this world. Perhaps this is fate. 3,000 years ago, Luo Daoyuan founded the Ghost Rider sect because of me. 3,000 years later, my reincarnation has been lured here. If that's the case, you should disappear as soon as possible." Yi Chen smirked coldly. He did not let go of the hostility within him at all. She sighed faintly and said, "Before I disappear, I'd like to make a deal with you." "What deal?" Yi Chen asked. "Your woman has a dark spirit root and a pure Yin body. She was born with a nether body. She can only inherit my legacy, so I plan to pass it on to her." At this point she paused. "In the future, I hope that she can save my people and become the new Ahura king." "There's no need for that. My woman doesn't need to inherit someone else's things," Yi Chen sneered. "Fine, I will leave behind the memory inheritance. Whether you choose or not depends on your woman's choice." Su Yuhan sighed softly. After that, the aura on her body began to dissipate, including the vertical eye between her brows. At the same time, the spirits in the surroundings all let out sorrowful cries. She collapsed on the white bone throne as soon as her aura dissipated completely. Yi Chen went forward to hold her immediately. At the same time, he checked her body carefully. He was relieved after confirming that the person had really disappeared and did not do anything to her body. Over half an hour later, Su Yuhan woke up slowly. She looked rather lost. "What happened to me, Yi Chen? You don't remember?" Yi Chen glared at her. Su Yuhan got up and looked around. She rubbed her forehead and said, "I only remember that I lost consciousness after I sat on that seat. I'm fine. You're probably too tired." Yi Chen comforted her while smiling. He chose to hide what happened earlier. However, what she said next shocked him. "Oh yeah, I feel like there's a lot of unfamiliar information in my head. Listen to me. Forget about them. Don't look at them. Don't think about them," Yi Chen said in all seriousness while holding her hand tightly. The reason why he was unwilling to let Su Yuhan inherit the Ahura king's inheritance was because he was worried that the Ahura king would do something to her. For example, when Su Yuhan became powerful, she would suddenly take over. "All right, I'll listen to you." Su Yuhan nodded obediently. "Let's go. Let's go back." Yi Chen led her down from the bone throne. "Wait!" Su Yuhan suddenly stopped walking. She looked at the countless spirits next to her. There was pity on her pretty face. "Yi Chen, can you release them? They've been trapped here for 1,000 years. They're so pitiful." "Release them?" Yi Chen frowned. With his cold personality, he actually did not want to care about that. Su Yuhan moved closer and kissed him on the cheek. She said softly, "Help me." "All right." Yi Chen nodded and subsequently walked to the altar. He lifted his head to look at the spirits before him. There were so many spirits before him, and they were filled with resentment. It was impossible for him to release them one by one just by chanting the method. Even if he could do that, he would be exhausted. They seemed to have sensed something and knelt before Yi Chen at the same time. Countless refining materials appeared before Yi Chen as he thought to this point. He spat true essence fire at Su Yuhan and began refining magic tools with a wave of his arm. Not long after, 6 black formation flags appeared in front of him, as well as a magic tool that looked like a paper crane. Yi Chen planted all 6 black formation flags around the altar. He then placed the magic tool that looked like a paper crane in the middle of the altar. He then looked at the spirits kneeling in front of him and said calmly, "You have been dead for 1,000 years and your resentment is extremely strong. Logically speaking, you should not be able to reincarnate. However, on account of my woman, I will send you to reincarnation today." A flower that was made of spiritual energy appeared in his hand as soon as he was done speaking. Yi Chen rubbed it softly and the flower shattered instantly. It turned into spiritual energy that drifted toward the spirit before him like scattered dandelions. When the spiritual energy fell on the spirits, the resentment on their bodies quickly dissipated, and the ferocious expressions on their faces gradually became incomparably peaceful. "Rise." Yi Chen lifted his arm and performed a series of hand seals on the altar where the rejuvenation barrier was set up. The entire altar released a white glow. "If you want to reincarnate, enter the formation." He let out a loud shout. As soon as he said that, the spirits that were kneeling on the ground stood up at the same time and walked into the formation in an orderly manner. All of the spirits looked at Su Yuhan at the same time. They then glanced at Yi Chen and Yi Wushuang, who was carrying Meng Meng next to him. They looked grateful. Extremely pure energy exploded from their bodies at the same time. The energy landed on Yi Chen and the rest like a curtain of rain. "This is..." Su Yuhan was stunned. Meng Meng giggled and said, "Daddy, I feel so good. This is the soul power that they have cultivated for 1,000 years. They gave their soul power back to us before they left. That's their way of thanking us," Yi Chen explained while smiling. He also felt that the power of his spiritual consciousness had greatly increased. If it could only cover a radius of 1 kilometer before, it could now cover a radius of 5 kilometers. This could also be considered as a peck in the mouth, a taste of karma. "Thank you for your kindness. Let's go." He lifted his head to look at the spirits in the formation and took a deep breath in. He chanted, "By the Grand Supreme Edict, all spirits are to kneel before my altar and be reborn. Those who have a head will be reborn, and those who have no head will ascend. All spirits will be blessed. Today I order you to be reborn." As soon as he was done speaking, the altar shook violently. The altar shook violently, and a beam of light shot up into the sky. Then, a white crane flew out from the altar. The white crane was carrying many souls on its back. "Daddy, it's a white crane!" the little girl exclaimed. The white crane flapped its wings and flew out of the hall directly. It disappeared. Su Yuhan said curiously, "Yi Chen, what's with that white crane?" Chapter 293. "That's right, Daddy. Where did that big white crane bring those aunties and uncles to?" Meng Meng was curious too. Yi Chen chuckled softly when he saw the mother and daughter's expressions. "Haven't you guys heard of flying a crane to the west? That white crane brought them to the 6 realms of reincarnation. Then, they'll be reincarnated according to their fate. In this world, there were 2 types of treatment when a person turned into a ghost after death. Humans were distinguished by their status while ghosts were distinguished by good and evil. Regular ghosts would be taken away by the messenger of death. The messenger of death would not be so kind to ordinary souls. They would usually be chained up and brought to the netherworld by force. Another type of treatment was for the messenger of death to bring the ghost soldiers to the netherworld. The messenger of death would be the king of hell after his death. In history, Lord Bao would be taken to the netherworld by the guard of honor to be the king of hell after his death. It was just like the saying went, those who were loyal and filial would be the king of the underworld after their death. Apart from those two types of treatment, Yi Chen, the heavenly emperor of the generation, could skip the procedure of going to the netherworld and go to the 6 realms of reincarnation directly. To put it simply, the ghosts that the White Crane brought away earlier were like backdoor visitors. You guys rest here. I'll go take a look. Yi Chen began walking around the Ghost Rider sect after saying that. Since he was here, he could not return empty-handed. The next morning, Yi Chen left the mountain with Su Yuhan and Meng Meng after resting at the Ghost Rider sect mountain gate for a night. He was heading to the Longxi bus station. He planned to take a bus to Guangzhou's provincial capital from there and then fly to Beijing. Then, he would return to Tiannan. Su Yuhan was not used to flying on her sword. Perhaps it was a modern mindset that was hard to change in a short time. When it was close to noon, Yi Chen arrived near the bus station with his wife and daughter. To his surprise, he found many policemen gathered at the entrance of the bus station. Why are there so many policemen? Did something happen at the bus station? Su Yuhan asked in confusion. Yi Chen scanned with his divine consciousness. Just when he was going to speak, he noticed a man in a cap standing at the newsstand less than 500 meters away from him. The other party looked at him with shock and even ecstasy. Then, he ran into an alley without a change in expression. Wait for me here. Yi Chen moved and chased after him immediately after saying that. When he arrived at the alley, he saw the man in the cap take out his phone and was about to call someone. The man was shocked when he noticed Yi Chen. He dropped his phone on the ground and panicked. How did you catch up to me? Are you going to call the Murong family? Yi Chen said wryly. The peaked cap man took a few steps back and suddenly spread his feet to run, but the next moment, he felt that his body could not move. Seeing that he was unwilling to say anything, Yi Chen walked over and pressed his hand on his head. He performed the soul-searching tactic forcefully. Later on, he found out that the Murong clan had captured Yushasha because of Murong Yang's death. Murong He even wanted to challenge him. Murong He, you're courting death. Yi Chen chuckled and disappeared from where he was without even looking at the young man in the cap, who had turned into an idiot. She asked as soon as she saw him, What did you do? Do you still remember Yushasha? She's been captured. I'm going to get her out, Yi Chen said while smiling. He was not a busybody. The main reason was that Yushasha was dragged into this because of him. Moreover, this girl was not bad. Therefore, he was going to help her. Su Yuhan was shocked. What? Who captured her? Don't worry. I won't let anything happen to her. Let's go. I'll bring you to a place to settle down. Yi Chen comforted her and brought the mother and daughter to a hotel nearby to stay. After getting Yi Wushuang to protect the mother and daughter, he walked out of the hotel and headed to the Murong residence. At the same time, in the backyard of the Murong family, there were 2 burly men standing guard at the entrance of a small storeroom. Murong Shui walked over with a lunchbox in her hand, but the 2 hunks stopped her immediately. I'm here to give food to my friend. Murong Shui forced a smile on her face. Subsequently, 2 thick stacks of cash appeared in her hand. She passed the cash to the 2 hunks intentionally. Brothers, please let me in. The 2 hunks revealed a smile on their faces after taking the money. Go in. I'll only give you 10 minutes. Nobody would say no to money. Even the 2 of them were no exception. Murong Shui thanked them and pushed the door open with the lunchbox. She saw Yushasha sitting on a stool with her limbs tied up. There was a ball of cloth in her mouth. Yushasha immediately started sobbing when she saw Murong Shui. Her little face was filled with excitement. She said immediately after Murong Shui removed the ball of cloth, Sister Shui, how was it? Are they willing to let me go? Murong Shui bit her lip and said rather helplessly, Sha, I'm afraid I can't. I tried my best. She had asked her father, Murong Qing, to beg Murong He for mercy for Yushasha. However, she was kicked out before she even saw her. She was only from the Murong clan's side branch, so she had no right to see Murong He at all. Moreover, it was Murong He's favorite grandson, Murong Yang, who had died. Yushasha's face turned pale upon hearing that. Yushasha's face turned pale. She covered her mouth and cried. Her tears fell like pearls from a broken necklace. She was just a university student who had yet to graduate. However, she was captured by the Murong clan just because she knew Yi Chen. Her life was even in danger. No one would be able to take that. Sha, I brought you your favorite chives. Have some, Murong Shui said while forcing a smile. However, Yu Sha could not stop crying. Murong Shui's heart ached and she was furious to see that. It's all Ye's fault. If not for him, you wouldn't have been dragged into this. Regret filled her face as she spoke to this point. If we had known that, we wouldn't have met him on the bus earlier. Sister Shui, did Yi Chen really kill Murong Yang? Yu Sha wiped her tears and lifted her head to look at her all of a sudden. Murong Shui was silent for a few seconds, then shook her head. I'm not sure either, but it shouldn't be fake. She was in disbelief when she first heard that Yi Chen had killed Murong Yang. After all, to her, Yi Chen was considered a wealthy young master at most. How could he have the ability and guts to kill Murong Yang? One must know that not only was Murong Yang the Murong clan's eldest young master, but he was also a cultivator. He was a spell master on mastery stage Dao entry. But the truth was right in front of them. She had to believe it even if she did not want to. The only thing she felt was that she was shocked by Yi Chen's ability. At that moment Yu Sha bit her lip and said weakly, Sister Shui, do you think Yi Chen will come to save me? Murong Shui laughed coldly. What do you think? I'm afraid you don't know how powerful Murong he is. He's an illuminating god spell master. He's like a god. Even if that Yi guy has some ability, he's definitely not his match. He knew that it was a trap, and you're not related to him at all. Why would he come? Maybe he's already in hiding. Hearing this, Yushasha's face turned pale as she burst into tears again. Her heart was filled with despair. Chapter 294. Yi Chen had no idea what Murong Shui was thinking about. Even if he did, he would not care. All Yi Chen wanted to do in his life was to have a clear conscience. He never cared about what other people thought. Yi Chen was not fast, but he was not slow either. At his level, even if he did not use his magic power to walk, it was as if there was wind beneath his feet. Over 20 minutes later, Yi Chen arrived less than a kilometer away from the Murong residence. There was a quiet path before him. It was similar to a path in a park with cobblestones. Meanwhile, there were neat maple trees around the path. Yi Chen was shocked to find people in all sorts of strange attire everywhere on the path. Most of them had the cultivation base of an ancient martial artist, and the highest among them was on illuminating pulse. Are these people here to watch the show? Yi Chen secretly speculated. After all, Murong he had issued a challenge to him earlier. It was not surprising that people were here to watch the show. At that moment, an impatient voice came from a side. Dad, how much longer do we have? I'm dying of exhaustion. I'm tired and thirsty. Yi Chen lifted his eyes to look. There was a man and a lady standing under a maple tree 50 steps away from his right. The man was approximately 40 years old. His temples were bulging, and he was breathing heavily. Meanwhile, the pretty lady next to him was approximately 24 or 25 years old. She wore black training attire, and her facial features looked similar to the middle-aged man. However, there was impatience on the lady's face at the moment. She was holding a low-heeled shoe that was a little short in her hand. She was fanning herself with her hand as she spoke. Yi Chen's eyes paused on the middle-aged man a few times because he realized that the man had the cultivation base of illuminating pulse. Moreover, the joints on his fingers were rather thick. Clearly, he was an expert in external martial arts. The pretty lady glared at him ferociously after noticing Yi Chen's gaze. What are you looking at? Haven't you seen it before? Cece, don't be so rude. The middle-aged man scolded her immediately. He then turned his head to look at Yi Chen, and smiled apologetically. I'm sorry, little brother. I've spoiled my daughter. That's her temper. Yi Chen shook his head lightly and was about to leave. However, the lady was unhappy. Who's that? Who allowed you to leave? Stop right there. Yi Chen turned his head and glared at her coldly. I see that you're also going to the Murong family to watch the show, so you should have some skills. I'm very unhappy right now. Do you want to fight with me? The woman moved her arms and legs, her eyes filled with arrogance. The middle-aged man said with a sullen face, Cece, if you do this again, don't come out with me next time. As soon as he said that, the woman pouted and said coldly, Dad, I'm just unhappy. I've been in the car for so long and now I have to walk. My legs are about to break. Who told you to come? The middle-aged man glared at her and turned his head to look at Yi Chen. He smiled lightly. Little brother, don't take it to heart. Oh yeah, are you going to the medicinal pill exchange at the Murong residence too? No, I'm going to kill someone. Yi Chen shook his head lightly. As soon as he said this, the woman burst into laughter. You want to go to the Murong family to kill people? Did I hear wrongly, or are you boasting? Even the middle-aged man was shocked. Yi Chen frowned. Is there a problem with me killing people? Of course. The woman snickered and looked at him as if she was looking at an idiot. Do you know what kind of place the Murong family is? They're the leader of Ganzhou, where there are many experts, especially old Master Murong He, who's the Ganzhou #1. How dare you say that you're going to the Murong family to kill people? She took a good look at Yi Chen from head to toe as she spoke to this point. She was rather disdainful. Moreover, you don't look like an expert at all. You might not even be able to defeat me, so how are you going to kill people? The middle-aged man looked awkward and stopped her immediately. He said to Yi Chen, Little brother, watch what you say. It's fine if I heard that, but if someone else heard it, you'd be in trouble. The middle-aged man sighed softly and subsequently walked over with the lady. He took the initiative to introduce himself. I'm Hui Yushan from the Longnan Hua Martial Arts Dojo. This is my daughter, Hua Cece. May I know your name, little brother? My surname is Yi. Yi Chen said coldly. Hui Yushan said while smiling immediately, Since we're going the same way, let's go together. We can take care of each other. Dad, you're the successor of the Hua family's tantric fist after all. Isn't it embarrassing for you to be with this brat? Hua Cece scoffed. That's enough. You can stop talking. Hui Yushan could not do anything to his daughter. She had been spoiled since she was young. Now that she learned some martial arts and was invincible in the dojo, it made her arrogant. Yi Chen smiled in a non-committal manner and walked out. Dad, look at this brat. He doesn't appreciate your kindness, Hua Cece said angrily. Hui Yushan could only catch up with Yi Chen quickly with her. He would rather face Yi Chen's coldness than listen to his daughter's complaints like before. Hui Yushan could not help but speak after noticing that Yi Chen was silent along the way. I wonder which sect you're from, little brother? People in the martial Dao world paid attention to different circles and sections. To ease the atmosphere, he could only use such a method to find a common topic with Yi Chen. I'm not from any sect, Yi Chen said coldly. Not from any sect? Hui Yushan smiled upon hearing that and stopped asking. He thought that Yi Chen was unwilling to reveal anything. Hua Cece, on the other hand, scoffed. I thought you were from a prestigious family since you have such a bad temper. Turns out you're not from any sect. Yi Chen ignored her and continued walking. His neglect made Hua Cece feel like she was punching cotton. She could only clench her teeth angrily behind him. Soon, they arrived at the entrance of the Murong residence. The group of people rushed to the entrance of the Murong family's old house. The guards here had been changed. They were now two ancient martial arts practitioners of the internal energy stage. Hui Yushan walked up and handed them a gilded name card. He said while smiling, I'm Hui Yushan from the Hua family dojo in Longnan. This is my daughter. We're here for the medicinal pill exchange. The two hunks nodded expressionlessly. Oh, it's Master Hua from Longnan. Do you know the rules of the medicinal pill exchange? You're not allowed to pick a fight or cause trouble. Yes. Hua Yushan nodded immediately. The two hunks only looked at Yi Chen then. Brother Yi, take out your name card. Otherwise, you won't be able to enter, Hua Yushan kindly reminded him. However, Yi Chen shook his head. I don't have a name card, and I don't need one. His voice fell. Hua Yushan and his daughter were stunned. Since you don't have a name card, then why did you come to participate in the pill exchange conference? A big man sneered. It was their first time guarding the door. Although they heard that Yi Chen had killed Morongyang, they had never seen him before. Therefore, they had no idea what he looked like. Yi, you can't get in without a name card. Hua Sisi shook her head and smiled. The next moment, Yi Chen took a step forward and shouted, Morong He, I, Yi Chen, am here today. Come out and accept your death. His voice was like a great bell, yet it was also like rolling thunder. It was deafening and directly spread out in all directions. Hua Yushan and his daughter were dumbfounded. Chapter 295. In the guest hall of the Morong residence, many martial artists were sitting there. Most of them had a powerful aura, especially the four people sitting on the four armchairs in the front. Each of them had a shocking aura with a golden gleam in their eyes. The guest hall was noisy at the moment. It was filled with people talking and discussing. Three silhouettes sat far away. They were Zhang Mengqi, Zhang Haoxuan, and Zhang Zijian. At that moment, Zhang Mengqi lifted her head to look at the four people sitting on the armchairs. Shock and seriousness filled her pretty face. I can't believe that the King Kong sect leader, Wu Di, the Iron Fist sect leader, Nie Wenyuan, the Flying Dagger sect leader, Lu Feng, and the little overlord, Fei Santong, are here. It's them. Zhang Haoxuan exclaimed softly from the side. Not only were the four of them famous in Gan province, but they were also well known throughout the entire northwestern region. This was because they were all experts at the peak of the illuminating pulse stage, only half a step away from becoming a martial Dao grandmaster. For example, Wu Di from the King Kong sect was invulnerable to weapons and bullet. Nie Wenyuan from the Iron Fist sect could punch through a steel plate with a single punch. Meanwhile, Lu Feng from the Flying Dagger sect had 7 flying daggers. He had 100% accuracy and could break anything, especially the little overlord, Fei Santong. He was extremely talented and was 2-3 meters tall. Coupled with his huge build, he looked like a giant. Zhang Mengqi inhaled. Just when she was going to speak, she heard a clap. The guest hall fell into silence at that moment. Subsequently, Wu Di from the King Kong sect got up and cleared his throat. He looked around and said, Guys, I've discussed with sect leader Nye from the Iron Fist sect and the rest. In reality, there's no need for old Master Morong He to kill Yi Chen. The 4 of us can kill him. The people were shocked. An old man clasped his fists and could not help but ask, Sect leader Wu, are you serious? Of course. It's been a day since old Master Morong He sent the challenge letter. However, Yi hasn't done anything yet. I'm guessing he doesn't dare to accept the challenge. Wu Di nodded lightly and smiled proudly with his arms behind his back. Therefore, I suggest that the Morong clan take back the challenge letter. At the same time, pretend to keep the peace so that Yi Chen will let his guard down. Then, we'll continue looking for his whereabouts secretly. As soon as we find him, the 4 of us will kill him. Not bad. Nie Wenyuan from the Iron Fist sect said while smiling, since Yi is afraid of old Master Morong He, his cultivation base is definitely not on illuminating God. He's on peak stage Dao entry at most. The 4 of us are on peak stage illuminating pulse. We can kill him if we work together. I wonder what price our Morong family will have to pay? A member of the Morong family asked subconsciously. Lu Feng from the Flying Dagger School stroked his beard and smiled. We heard that the Morong family has a good relationship with the spiritual medicine mountain, So we'd like to ask the Murong family to ask the spiritual medicine mountain to refine some pills that can help us improve our cultivation. The four of them had been stuck at the peak of the meridian opening realm for many years. The four of them had discussed it, and they had found that only by relying on medicinal pills would they have the slightest hope of breaking through to the Xiantian realm. The Murong family can consider this, but we have to report it to the old master first, the person from the Murong family said. Ha ha ha! Someone laughed and said, if the four powerhouses join forces, ye will definitely be killed. Everyone nodded immediately. I'm just afraid that ye will hide forever, someone said worriedly. If I were Yi Chen, I'd come to him to ask for forgiveness. Perhaps he'll die in one piece that way. Wu Di scoffed. Just when he was going to say something, a deafening voice came from outside all of a sudden. Murong He I Yi Chen am here today. Come out now and accept your death. Bang! The people in the lounge froze instantly. They thought they had heard it wrong, so they could not react at the moment. Meanwhile, at the entrance of the Murong residence, as Yi Chen's majestic voice was heard, the ones who were the most shocked were Hui Yushan and his daughter, as well as the two hunks guarding the door. Yu Huasisi was the first to react. She looked at Yi Chen in disbelief and said while stammering, "You're the Yi Chen who killed Murong Yang?" She could not get over the shock. Initially, she thought that Yi Chen was just a passerby that she had bumped into. Never had she thought that it was Yi Chen who had been in the limelight recently. That was the kind of person he was. How could she provoke him earlier? Hui Yushan was stunned for a moment. Subsequently, he clasped his fists at Yi Chen in all seriousness and forced a smile. "It's my fault. Quick, report it now." After the two big men reacted, they rushed into the villa together. Not long after, there was a burst of rapid footsteps coming from inside. Subsequently, a slightly plump middle-aged man led the people out. The middle-aged man looked at Yi Chen and shouted in rage, "Yi, you've finally shown yourself. Where's Murong He? Ask him to come out and accept his death." Yi Chen said calmly, "How dare you?" A scoff came. An old man in the Spiritual Medicine Mountain's uniform looked at Yi Chen with a grim expression. "Yi Chen, you killed old Fu of my Spiritual Medicine Mountain. You must give my Spiritual Medicine Mountain an explanation." The man was a beginner-stage illuminating pulse martial artist. He did not take Yi Chen seriously because he had the advantage of numbers. "Sure, I'll give you an explanation now." Instead of being angry, Yi Chen smiled. He stretched his arm out and grabbed him. The man was instantly grabbed by him. Just when he was about to speak, a palm came, and the man's head was crushed. Dead silence filled the place at the moment. Huasisi's eyes were wide open in shock. Zhang Mingqi and the other two had a change of expression. Clearly, they did not expect a beginner-stage illuminating pulse ancient martial artist to die just like that. One must know that such an expert would be a revered one in the Zhang family of Huanan. "Yi Chen, how dare you kill someone before us? You're insane." The King Kong sect leader Wu Di was enraged. He curled his palm into a fist and threw a punch at Yi Chen. That punch was like a ferocious tiger roaring in the forest. It was extremely ferocious. Yi Chen smirked in disdain. He threw a punch too without dodging. Bang! Wu Di was immediately blown up by his punch, turning into a rain of blood that filled the sky. The people were dumbstruck at that moment. He had killed an illuminating pulse expert with a single punch? Did he have to be so terrifying? Yi Chen moved again. He charged directly at the Iron Fist sect leader, Nie Wenyuan, and the other two. Nie Wenyuan's expression changed. Before he could react, he felt a heavy blow on his chest. Bang! His body exploded instantly. Another one was killed. He did not even pant. Lu Feng from the Flying Dagger sect and the little overlord, Fei Santong, had a drastic change of expression. They wanted to run, but Yi Chen caught up to them. Their bodies were torn into pieces directly. The 4 experts who were so confident earlier were killed just like that. They did not even have the chance to fight back. At that moment, the entire lounge was dead silent. At that moment, Yi Chen was like a thunderbolt. He crushed everything as if he was crushing dead leaves and chopping vegetables. How could he be so powerful? Zhang Haoxuan and the other 2, as well as Huasusu, were completely dumbstruck. Bang! A black dragon formed by black energy leaped out of the staircase on the 4th floor and charged at Yi Chen directly. Yi Chen, it's not even 3 days yet. Are you in such a rush to die? Murong Hutsong appeared at the staircase. He looked at Yi Chen with an extremely grim expression. Yi Chen said coldly, "Old man, there's no need for 3 days. I can kill you now." Chapter 296. Old Master Murong is here. As soon as Murong he appeared, everyone in the Murong residence's guest hall had their eyes focused. Their eyes were burning with passion. Many of them smirked and looked at Yi Chen gloatingly. "You're dead now. Old Master Murong is Ganzhou's #1. His spells are amazing. So what if you killed 4 peak stage illuminating pulse experts?" Murong He's expression was grim. He wore a gray robe and walked slowly with a dragon-headed walking stick. Although he was walking slowly, it felt like he was walking on the surface of a lake, causing ripples to form. Although he was very close, he gave off a feeling that he could only be seen but not reached. "He's too powerful." Zhang Mingqi, who was among the crowd, secretly inhaled sharply. Old Master Murong must have reached the stage of nature that Grandpa mentioned. Even Hui Yushan and his daughter could not help but immerse themselves in the rhythm of his footstep. A moment later, Murong He stopped less than 2 meters away from Yi Chen. He ignored the crowd and glared at Yi Chen coldly. "You arrogant brat! Do you know that Yang is the most outstanding descendant of my clan? I've placed too much hope and effort on him. How dare you kill him?" "So what if I kill him? What can you do to me? You're just an ant. You deserve to die." Yi Chen smiled calmly. "Moreover, he offended me many times for a so-called pill. He deserves to die. If I'm not mistaken, you must have instructed him to do that, am I right?" "I have no idea what you're talking about." Murong He smirked. Although the Murong clan was a tyrant in Ganzhou, and he was the #1 expert in Ganzhou, there were some dark things that he could not talk about openly. "Old thing, you're shameless. You're exactly the same as that useless grandson of yours who died." Yi Chen shook his head lightly with slight disdain on his face. "It's no wonder that you would threaten me with an innocent girl. Now, come and accept your death." At the end of his speech, his voice turned cold. He took a step forward and leaped onto a tall maple tree around the Murong family's villa. "Great." Murong He looked ferocious. "Since you're asking for a quick death, I'll send you on your way." As soon as he finished speaking, a gust of wind suddenly blew under his feet, and he floated to another maple tree as if he was carried by the wind. The distance between them was less than 10 meters. At this moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on the 2 of them. Their hearts were thumping non-stop. Now, they were certain that Yi Chen's cultivation base was on Illuminating God, and so was Murong He. The battle between 2 spirit realm warriors was hard to come by in 20 years. Zhang Zijian, who was in the crowd, looked at the figure standing at the top of the maple tree with a complicated gaze. He said by instinct, "Mr. Yi, you must win." Although he didn't think it was possible. After all, they knew how powerful Murong He was. "He wants to win? Aren't you thinking too much?" Zhang Haoxuan, who was standing aside, could not help but smirk. "Although this fella is quite capable, it's impossible for him to be Murong He's match. Otherwise, why do you think the name Murong He has been shining in Gan province for decades?" "Not bad." Zhang Mingqi nodded and said, "It's very likely that Murong He has already comprehended nature Tao. His ability is even more powerful than ordinary Illuminating God powerhouses. Ye will definitely die today." Speaking of this, her eyes were filled with joy. I asked you to give the heart-repairing pill to the Zhang family, but you didn't believe me. Now you can only die. Dad, this is a spell master? Huasisi asked with her eyes wide open. Hui Yushan took a deep breath and said, Yes, and he's a powerful spell master. Yi is in trouble this time, Huasisi mumbled. Even she did not have high hopes for Yi Chen. Meanwhile, Murong He, who was standing on top of the maple tree, glared at Yi Chen coldly. Yi Chen, you've broken through to illuminating God at such a young age. You're considered a genius even in China. If we let you grow, you'll definitely be famous in the spell world in less than 10 years. It's unfortunate that you shouldn't have killed Yang and offended my Murong family. Today, I'll let you witness my power. At the end of his sentence, the aura on his body surged. Subsequently, he performed a hand seal with both hands. Immediately, a crimson flame shot out of his hand and smashed at Yi Chen like a gigantic fireball, creating fire out of thin air. Countless people had a change of expression when they saw that. All of them were shocked by Murong He's technique. Indeed, the technique of an illuminating god was beyond their imagination. That's just a child's play. Break it, Yi Chen scoffed. Without even lifting his eyelids, he stretched his arm out and grabbed the gigantic fireball that was coming at him. Bang! The fireball shattered as a result. It turned into sparks that flew everywhere, scaring many people who were standing nearby to dodge. Someone exclaimed, breaking all spells with brute force? One must know that Murong He was an illuminating god expert. The fire condensation spell that he performed casually could blow up a tree. However, Yi Chen had broken it so easily? Even Murong He was slightly shocked. He subsequently scoffed and said, You're quite capable. No wonder you dare to come here and seek death. Wind rise. He performed a hand seal quickly with both hands as soon as he spoke. A black glow exploded from his hands. The glow was getting bigger and bigger like a black sun. At the same time, he shouted. Falling leaves. Within 1,000 meters with him as the center, a strange wind appeared out of nowhere. The strange wind was getting stronger, causing countless maple trees to shake. They seemed to be collapsing. The maple leaves that filled the sky seemed like it was raining as they landed on his hands. Eventually, they consolidated into a gigantic black ball. The black ball spun rapidly like a black hole with a terrifying suction force. At this moment, everyone on the ground staggered and almost lost their balance. Countless people's expressions changed as they watched this scene in shock. Is that an illuminating god's technique? Huasisi held on to Hui Yushan tightly as her face turned pale. Zhang Mingqi mumbled, No wonder Grandpa warned us not to offend the Murong clan, no matter what before we left. They're just too terrifying. Murong He stood in the air as the gray robe on him fluttered in the wind. Ha ha! Yi Chen, I'd like to see how you're going to handle this. As soon as he was done speaking, the black ball that was condensed from countless maple leaves in his hand charged at Yi Chen like a dark tornado with a strong gust of wind. Dust flew everywhere the black ball passed, and the ground was directly plowed into a long gully, as if a cow had plowed back and forth dozens of times. The scene was spectacular. In the blink of an eye, Yi Chen was completely covered by the black ball that looked like a small hill. The maple tree under his feet was crushed into pieces. That kid is dead for sure. Zhang Haoshuan couldn't help but shout when he saw this scene. Everyone shook their heads. Under that black ball, even a small hill would be trampled to the ground, let alone a person. Ha ha ha, I was wondering how capable you were. It turns out that you're just trying to look impressive. A loud laughter could be heard. Murong He smirked. This is the price you have to pay for killing my Yang and going against the Murong clan. Unfortunately, the pill formulas that you have are. He didn't finish his sentence. As a loud thud came, the gigantic black ball exploded downstairs. A skinny silhouette shot up like a dragon soaring into the sky. Old man Murong, it's too early for you to celebrate. In the next second, a golden fist shadow smashed at Murong-hee hard. P.S. Chapter 4. There's one more chapter. Chapter 297. What? He's fine? They looked at the golden silhouette that was like a rainbow. Shock appeared on their faces. They were so shocked that their eyeballs were going to fall out of their sockets. How is that possible? The smile on Murong-hee's face froze. He realized that something was wrong when he sensed the golden fist shadow coming at him. He performed the wind manipulation method immediately in an attempt to dodge it. Bang! The golden fist shadow landed on his back. Murong-hee spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying to the ground. At that moment, there was dead silence at the scene. Zhang Mingqi and the rest looked rather pale and shocked as they watched the blood that filled the air. Initially, they thought that Yi Chen would definitely die from Murong-hee's spell earlier. Never had they thought that not only was he fine, but he even broke the big black ball and threw Murong-hee out with a single punch. That brat is so powerful? Hua Sisi looked dumbstruck. Hua Yushan covered her mouth immediately when he heard that. He could not get rid of the shock inside of him. Tui! Murong-hee, who was thrown onto the ground, spat another mouthful of blood out. He subsequently stood up from the ground and looked at Yi Chen with disbelief in his eyes. Aren't you a spell master? How can you have such powerful strength? If he had not dodged in time earlier, it would have been difficult for him to survive after taking 20% of Yi Chen's punch's force. Who told you that I'm a spell master? Yi Chen stood with his arms behind his back and looked down at him in a condescending manner. Murong-hee was stunned at first. Subsequently, he recalled something and shock filled his face. Why, you're a dual cultivator of spells and martial arts? Why, you're a martial Dao master too? Everyone's expression changed as soon as he was done speaking. The people's expressions changed at the same time. Dual cultivators of spells and martial arts referred to a person cultivating martial Dao and spells at the same time. They would have double combat strength, allowing them to attack from a distance and fight in close combat. However, that was just a legend. One should not bite off more than one could chew. After all, a person's energy was limited. One would have to spend their entire life cultivating martial Dao or spells. Why would one choose such a path? Martial Dao master? Illuminating God? Zhang Mingqi almost fainted. She could not accept the waves of shock that Yi Chen brought to her at the moment. Before this, he thought that Yi Chen was merely a spell master who was on peak stage Dao entry. Never had he thought that Yi Chen would break his fire consolidation method after fighting Murong-hee and send him flying with a punch. How is this possible? Zhang Haoshuan, who had mocked Yi Chen repeatedly earlier, turned pale at that moment. He was in disbelief. No one was more shocked than Hua Sisi. Dad, that kid, oh no, is he really a martial Dao master? A martial Dao Grand Master was a legendary existence. She had never seen one in her life. I'm afraid so. Hua Yushan closed his eyes as his emotions surged. The existence that he had spent his entire life pursuing was now right in front of him, and it was a young man who was not even 30 years old. Humph! Murong-hee's expression changed a few times. He chuckled all of a sudden. Yi Chen, so what if you're really a dual cultivator of spells and martial arts? I haven't even used my full strength yet. What other techniques do you have? Use them all. Yi Chen gave a short response. His expression was extremely cold, and no one could tell what he was feeling at all. Toxic dragon miasma, open up! Murong-hee took out a medicinal pill and swallowed it. Subsequently, he slapped the green dragon-headed walking stick that he always carried with him. As a crack was heard, the handle broke. A rainbow-colored mist quickly floated out from the crutch like a rainbow. The rainbow-colored mist gathered more and finally, it soared into the sky like a rainbow-colored dragon. In the end, it covered the sky and the earth, like a rainbow-colored cloud enveloping the earth. It's the toxic dragon miasma. Zhang Mingqi, who was in the crowd, had a change of expression. The little girl from the Zhang family is quite knowledgeable. Murong he smiled proudly upon realizing that someone recognized the seven-colored mist. That's right. It's the toxic dragon miasma. Sister, what's the toxic dragon miasma? Zhang Haoshuan asked. Zhang Mingqi took a deep breath in and said, Legend has it that there's a toxic dragon stream deep in the old Lingnan forest. There's seven-colored miasma lingering there all year round. It's said that a toxic dragon cultivates there, and the miasma is released by it. Ordinary people would die from just one whiff of it. Their bodies would even turn into thick water. It's appalling. She was from the Zhang family of Huanan. She had been exposed to all sorts of medical knowledge since she was young. She could identify tens of thousands of herbs, as well as all sorts of miasma, poisonous gas, and mirage. The most famous one was the toxic dragon miasma. The people's expressions changed one after another. They retreated a few steps back at the same time. However, the miasma above their heads was just too huge. They could not avoid it. Someone could not help but say, feeling like crying, Old Master Murong, please don't drag us into the grudge between you and Yi Chen. Don't be afraid, everyone. Zhang Mingqi said while smiling at the critical moment. My family of Huanan has an antidote. You won't be poisoned as long as you consume it. She took out a purple gourd as she spoke. She poured out blue medicinal pills one after another and gave them to the people. They were only relieved after everyone consumed it. They said in gratitude, Ms. Zhang, you're really kind. Now we can watch old Master Murong and the rest fight from a close distance. Zhang Mingqi secretly scoffed. Among everyone present, Yi Chen was the only one who had not consumed the antidote. The reason why she did that was that she wanted everyone to witness what would happen to him. Haha. Yi. I'd like to see how you're going to deal with the toxic dragon miasma. Yi Chen, you've seen what I'm capable of. I'll give you a chance now. Hand over the pill formula and destroy your cultivation base. I'll consider leaving your body in one piece. Murong he laughed out loud, feeling proud of himself. Yi Chen shook his head lightly. Do you really think that you can hurt me with this mere miasma? Humph. You're so stubborn. Murong He's smile turned cold. Subsequently, he performed a hand seal and lifted his arm to attack Yi Chen. Die. As his voice fell, the seven-colored poisonous cloud above his head turned into a hurricane and pressed down on Yi Chen, who was fast. You're still not dead? Zhang Mingqi could not help but scoff upon seeing that. She seemed to have envisioned Yi Chen turning into a pool of blood after being surrounded by the miasma. What a pity! Many people shook their heads. When the hurricane that was formed by the poisonous cloud was about to approach Yi Chen, he suddenly opened his mouth and sucked hard. A tremendous suction force came from his mouth. The next moment, the hurricane became much thinner. It turned into a seven-colored airflow and was sucked into Yi Chen's mouth. Meanwhile, Yi Chen was completely fine. What? Everyone rubbed their eyes as if they had seen a ghost. How is this possible? Murong He and Zhang Mingqi exclaimed at the same time. Their faces were filled with deep shock. He actually inhaled the toxic dragon miasma in one breath? Is he still human? Hui Yushan and his daughter were terrified. Yi Chen looked at Murong He wryly. Your technique is much more powerful than Murong Yang's. Unfortunately, it's useless on me. Why you? Murong He was shocked and enraged. Now it's my turn. Yi Chen chuckled and opened his mouth again. A seven-colored mist was spat out of his mouth. I'll let you guys have a taste of the so-called toxic dragon miasma. Haha, have you forgotten that I've taken the antidote pill? Murong He scoffed by instinct and allowed the seven-colored airflow to attack him. Zhang Mingqi stood where she was and shook her head. She thought that Yi Chen was a fool. However, in the next second, she suddenly felt an itch on her face. She stretched her arm and scratched it immediately. A piece of flesh with skin on it was scratched off. She was stunned. Subsequently, she let out an extremely terrifying and devastating shriek. Chapter 298. Genius Nanny in the City. Chapter 298. How Dare You Kill Me? City Romance, Geekikms. Add a bookmark. Chapter 298. How Dare You Kill Me? Part 1. I've been poisoned. Zhang Mingqi shrieked in an extremely high-pitched voice as she looked at the bloody mess in her hand. Didn't I take the antidote earlier? How did I get poisoned? Impossible. Her face was filled with disbelief. Zhang Haoxuan's fate wasn't much better than hers. His face was full of bumps and hollows, like bloody holes. The rest retreated aside by instinct when they saw the 7-colored poisonous smoke coming, so they were not poisoned. However, everyone looked at the duo in fear. Why your faces? Zhang Zijian looked at them as if he was looking at a ghost. 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 Huasisi was so scared that she handed it over. Zhang Mingqi and Zhang Haoxuan were just too terrifying at the moment. Aside from the thick water that was flowing out of their faces, their flesh was peeling off as they scratched. At the same time, Murong He, who was in the air, saw that too. He had a blank expression on his face. Subsequently, he felt his body beginning to itch. The itch was unbearable, as if 10,000 ants were crawling on his body. His hair began to fall off, followed by his scalp. Impossible, this is impossible. Murong He shrieked in devastation as fear filled his face. I've clearly taken the antidote. How did this happen? Everyone stared blankly at this scene. They could not help but rejoice in their hearts. Haha. Yi Chen smiled calmly. That's because I changed the toxicity of your so-called toxic dragon miasma a little when I swallowed it. You know how to use poison too. Murong He snapped back to his senses. He looked extremely shocked. That's right. This brat must know how to use poison. Otherwise, why would he be fine after swallowing the toxic dragon miasma? Instead, he changed the toxicity of the toxic dragon miasma. It was useless even though they had taken the toxic dragon pill. Everyone looked at Yi Chen with fear in their eyes. It was one thing for him to defeat Murong He with both magic and martial arts, but even the toxic dragon miasma could not do anything to him. Please note, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes when reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. / Did it have to be so terrifying? Plop. At that moment, Zhang Haoxuan knelt hard onto the ground. He scratched his body while kowtowing to Yi Chen like he was pounding garlic. Yi Chen, Mr. Yi, I was a snob. I failed to recognize you. Please, save me. I don't want to die, he cried as he kowtowed. Like a dead dog. Zhang Mingqi knelt on the ground and said in a trembling voice, Mr. Yi, I was wrong. I shouldn't have targeted you again and again. I hope you can save me for the sake of the Zhang family in Wannan. No one was not afraid of death. Even she was no exception. Her heart was filled with deep regret. If he had known that this would happen, he would not have looked at Yi Chen with such arrogance. He would not have wanted to watch him die coldly. The people at the scene were completely dumbfounded to see the duo kneeling on the ground, just like that. One must know that the Zhang family in Wannan was known as the national medical family. They had been passed down for up to 100 years and were proficient in medical skills. However, they were bowing before Yi Chen at that moment. Yi Chen stood with his arms behind his back, facing the duo's apology. His expression was extremely cold. Zhang family in Wannan? What's that? Why you? Zhang Haoxuan shrieked in rage. He wanted to stand up by instinct, but in the next second, his body fell hard onto the ground and turned into a pool of blood. No. I don't want to die. Zhang Mingqi shrieked in fear and subsequently turned into a pool of blood. The entire place was deathly silent. Everyone held their breaths as they blankly stared at the scene before them. It was such a tragic death. Murong He was the only one left who was poisoned. At that moment, he was suppressing the poison with his profound cultivation base. He said while stammering, Yi Chen, I won't fight you anymore. As long as you give me the antidote, I won't hold you accountable for killing my young. He panicked now. There was no trace of the imposing manner from before. However, an extremely vicious gleam flashed through the depths of his eyes. The hatred he had for Yi Chen was growing. As long as I escape this calamity, I'll use all my strength to tear you into 1,000 pieces to vent the hatred in my heart. He had made up his mind to bow down to Yi Chen first. He would think of a way after he had saved his life. With his connections, he could call a few powerhouses of the same level to attack Yi Chen. Yi Chen would definitely die. As his voice fell, everyone was in an uproar. Did Murong He, who was on illuminating God, abandon his dignity and beg Yi Chen to spare his life? The members of the Murong family were in despair. The most powerful person in the Murong family was now like a dog. To Murong He, Yi Chen was looking at him with a mysterious smile on his face. Yi Chen, oh no, Seiji, as long as you give me the antidote, I'm willing to give you all of the Murong family's assets. I've cultivated quite a lot over the years. I'm even willing to be your dog. Murong He's heart sank. He raised the price again. You talk too much nonsense. Yi Chen chuckled softly and took a step out. He charged directly at Murong He. What I hate the most in my life is people threatening me. Murong He wanted to run by instinct. However, he realized that the poison would spread as soon as he activated his cultivation method. He could not help but be enraged. How dare you kill me? Bang. Yi Chen said nothing. Reminder, please rest your eyes when reading for a long time. Instead, he punched Murong He's chest. As a loud thud was heard, Murong He was punched into the ground, creating a huge crater. His eyes were wide open, and there was still resentment lingering on his face. In the next second, his body turned into a pool of blood. Uncle! Old Master! Some of the members of the Murong family were devastated. They could hardly believe it. The pillar of the Murong family had died just like that. The place fell into dead silence. The people who were watching were as quiet as cicadas in winter. They dared not make a sound at all, but the shock in their eyes lingered. They thought Murong He would definitely win the battle, and there would be no suspense at all. Never had they thought that Murong He would die in the end. Moreover, he had died from his own toxic dragon miasma. He killed Uncle. Let's fight him. A member of the Murong family shouted and glared at Yi Chen in resentment. However, nobody responded to him. Die. Yi Chen pointed his finger at him. His body exploded into a bloody mist. The people were shocked again. They could not help but secretly curse that person earlier for being an idiot. Can't you see that Murong He is dead? How dare you overestimate yourself and try to fight him? Yi Chen lifted his eyes to look at all the members of the Murong family. Who else wants to die? Stand out. As soon as he said that, everyone from the Murong family held their heads down, not daring to look at him. An old man from the Murong family stood out and said while shaking, Seiji, Murong He was the one who caused this. It has nothing to do with most of the people in the Murong family. Now that the culprit is dead, please don't start a massacre. Yi Chen said nothing. His expression was cold. The old man clenched his teeth and knelt before Yi Chen. As long as you don't destroy my family is willing to acknowledge you as our master. We'll respect you as the master of Ganzhou. As soon as he was done speaking, everyone from the Murong family knelt onto the ground. All the members of the Murong family knelt on the ground in unison. We're willing to acknowledge spiritual master Yi as our master. Thud, thud, thud. In the next second, the people who were watching also knelt on one knee and said in unison, We're willing to respect you as the master of Ganzhou. P.S. Also be patient. Chapter 299. We're willing to respect spiritual master Yi as the ruler of Gan province. The hundreds of people present shouted these words in unison. Their voices were like rolling thunder, vast and mighty. Under such a voice, Huasisi's expression was very complicated. She couldn't help but look at the voice that stood proudly in the sky. She only felt that the other party was like an emperor who accepted the worship of everyone. Was this the existence that he had looked down on the way here? Little did they know. He was nothing in the other party's eyes. Thinking of this, her face turned pale. Suddenly, she did not dare to look directly at Yi Chen's radiance. Hui Yushan, who practiced the Hua clan's tantric fist, was shaken to the core. He exhaled a mouthful of murky air. From now on, Gan province will no longer belong to the Murong clan, but to the Yi clan. In one battle, the Murong family had to bow their heads. In just one battle, all the big shots in Gan province had submitted to him. There was nothing more shocking than this. Yi Chen had no expression on his face facing the people's cheers. Instead, he landed on the ground and looked at the old man from the Murong clan who spoke earlier. "Where's Yushasha?" "It's in the backyard. I'll take you there." The old man jolted and led Yi Chen into the Murong residence immediately. He was secretly glad that Yi Chen was here. Fortunately, they did not do anything extreme to Sha. Otherwise, they would have died. Including the garden and other facilities, the entire Murong family's house was about 1,000 square meters, which was equivalent to the size of an ordinary high school. The distance between the Murong family's backyard and the Murong family's front door was 10 minutes on foot, and they also had to pass through a lot of greenery. In the backyard of the Murong family, Murong Shui hadn't left since she'd entered. She'd been talking to Yushasha the entire time. Yushasha subconsciously asked, "Sister Shui, what's that sound?" "I don't know." Murong Shui glanced outside. She wanted to leave, but she was worried that the two big men guarding the door wouldn't let her in. "Could it be Yi Chen who's here?" Yushasha said weakly while biting her lip. She had a faint hope in her heart. "He? Do you think that's possible?" Murong Shui chuckled and said angrily, "I've already said that he's no match for Murong He. There's no way he would have the guts to come. Furthermore, their battle is the day after tomorrow." Hearing this, Yushasha's face paled. Murong Shui couldn't bear to see her like this. She comforted her, "Don't panic. I'll think of a way to get you out of here." Although she said that, she didn't have much hope in her heart. After all, she was only a branch of the Murong family. "Sister Shui." Yushasha suddenly looked at her. "If I die, can you not tell my family? My parents will. If they ask, just tell them that I went abroad to study. Don't worry, you'll be fine." Murong Shui had completely lost control of her emotions. She hugged her and began to sob. Wiping her tears, Yushasha forced a smile. "I'm afraid that my parents won't be able to take it if they know that I'm dead. It's all Ye's fault. If not for him, you wouldn't have been dragged into this." Murong Shui cursed while crying. She hated Yi Chen to death. At this moment, a faint voice came from outside. "That's right, it's indeed my fault." Hearing this, the two girls were stunned. Then, the door opened and a skinny figure walked in with his hands behind his back, looking at the two of them with a smile. Murong Shui and Yushasha's eyes widened. "Yi Chen." Yushasha rubbed her eyes in disbelief. Yi Chen chuckled softly. "That's me. I'm sorry to have startled you." However, Murong Shui did not think too much about it. Her expression changed as she said immediately, "Yi Chen, quick, take Sha away." As she spoke, she stretched out her hand to untie the rope on Yushasha's body. Her actions were very hurried, for fear of wasting even a second. Yi Chen did not move at all. She couldn't help but say angrily, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and help me untie Shasha's rope. Take her away and run. If someone finds out, none of you will be able to escape." She thought Yi Chen had secretly killed the people guarding the door to save Yushasha while the Murong clan was not paying attention. "Why are you running? She's safe now." Yi Chen smiled lightly and waved his arm. The rope on Yushasha was untied automatically. Just as Murong Shui was about to say something, she suddenly saw an old man in a traditional Chinese robe walk in. Swoosh! Her face instantly turned pale. This was because she recognized the old man as Murong Yen. In the entire Murong clan, his status was second only to Murong He. She fell to the ground with a thud. It's over. This time, no one could escape. Beside her, Yushasha also had a look of despair. However, the next moment, the old man bowed and clasped his fists at Yi Chen. He said, "Master, although we captured Ms. Yushasha, we didn't torture her." Seeing this scene, the two women were instantly dumbfounded. He was the number 2 person in the Murong clan, yet he was so respectful to Yi Chen. Weren't they mortal enemies? Murong Shue stammered, Master. Not bad. Murong Yen nodded and said in all seriousness, the Murong clan has acknowledged Sage Yi as our master. He then added, by the way, Murong He has committed many evil deeds and almost brought disaster to the Murong clan. Master has already killed him. As soon as he said that, Murong Shue and Yushasha were dumbfounded. I'm really sorry that you've been locked up for so long because of me. Let's go and have dinner. Yi Chen smiled at Yushasha. At the dining table, Yi Chen sat in the main seat while Su Yuhan sat next to him. She was carrying Meng Meng in her arms. He had seized the opportunity to pick up the mother and daughter earlier. All of the Murong clan's upper echelons were there with careful expressions on their faces. Murong Shue and Yushasha were dumbstruck the entire time, facing the scrumptious dishes on the table. Until now, they still could not believe what had happened. Murong Shue, in particular, felt her heart pounding. Yi Chen had killed Murong He. He had even made the Murong clan yield, and all the bosses in Ganzhou submit to him. Everything that had happened had crushed her psychological defense completely. Murong Yen handed over a document and said with a smile, Master, this document is the property transfer legal document that my Murong family has entrusted the Shimming law firm to set up. It contains all of my Murong family's property. All you need to do is sign it, and all of my Murong family's property and income will belong to you. As soon as he was done speaking, countless people from the Murong clan were devastated. Murong Yen was heartbroken too. One must know that the Murong clan had hundreds of companies under them. They had been in business for so many years. They had become a financial group with hundreds of billions of assets. Now, all of that had gone to someone else. Clatter. Murong Shue was so shocked that her chopsticks fell onto the ground. Her beautiful eyes were wide open. Yi Chen glanced at it and subsequently nodded. He said to Meng Meng, who was in his embrace while smiling, My dear daughter, Daddy will give you 100 billion, okay? Daddy, how much is 100 billion? Meng Meng's mouth was covered in oil from eating. She said while blinking, How many spicy gluten and ice cream can I buy with that? The people were speechless to hear that. Su Yuhan took a tissue and wiped her mouth. She said angrily, Look at how fat you are. You still know how to eat. Yi Chen was slightly stunned. Subsequently, he said in between tears and laughter, I can buy a lot of them. You won't be able to finish them anyway. Sure, Daddy. Meng Meng was elated. Yi Chen nodded and picked up the document and pen. He held the little girl's hand and signed the name Yi Meng Meng. He even pressed his fingerprint on it. He said while smiling, Remember, if anyone says that you're poor in the future, tell them that you've inherited 100 billion and that you're a rich lady. Dead silence filled the place. Murong Shue's eyeballs almost popped out. That's all of the Murong clan's assets. It's up to 100 billion, and you're giving it to a kid just like that? Must you be so stubborn? Chapter 300. The genius stay-at-home dad is in the city. Chapter 300. Didn't you hear me asking you to get lost? Third update. Urban Romance, Jikikms. Add a bookmark, recommend book. Didn't you hear me asking you to get lost? I told you to get lost, didn't you hear me? At the dining table. Everyone was dumbstruck. The people were dumbstruck. Nobody had expected Yi Chen to transfer hundreds of billions of the Murong family's assets to his daughter. Even Su Yuhan was no exception. At that moment, everyone had mixed feelings. Murong Shue, in particular, could not hide the envy in her eyes when she looked at Meng Meng. She was not even 5 years old, was she not? She was already a billionaire. If her assets were exposed, she could enter the Forbes richest women list directly. It would be a piece of cake for her to top the list. However, Yi Chen ignored the people's stares. Instead, he looked at Yu Shasha and said, "What did you study in university?" "Business administration and finance." Yu Shasha was stunned. She asked, "What's wrong?" "I've implicated you because of me. To apologize, I'll give you 2 options now." Yi Chen smiled calmly and said, "Firstly, I'll give you 100 million yuan directly as compensation for your psychological damage. Secondly, you'll be in charge of the Morong family." What did you say?" Yu Shasha was stunned. She was not the only one, the rest were shocked too. Morong Yen forced a smile. Yi Chen was trying to make the Lu family a mere figurehead. He did not trust them after all. However, deep down, he did not think much of it. Although he was loyal to Yi Chen now, it did not mean that he could accept a girl who knew nothing climbing over his head. Morong Shui was so shocked that she almost screamed. Clearly, she did not expect Yi Chen to make such a decision. Subsequently, she felt a little indignant. Why are you only giving benefits to Yu Shasha and not me? I've helped you after all. In terms of ability and shrewdness, I'm stronger than Yu Shasha." Yi Chen said nothing. He was only looking at Yu Shasha. Reminder: please rest your eyes when reading for a long time. Recommended reading: he had come up with this idea on the spur of the moment. He needed a representative. Although the Morong family had surrendered, he definitely couldn't hand it over to the Morong family's own people to manage. Since he didn't know many people in Gan province, after much consideration, he still chose Yu Shasha. He wasn't afraid that Yu Shasha wasn't capable and wouldn't submit to the masses, but he was afraid that Yu Shasha wouldn't accept him. Suppressing the shock in her heart, Yu Shasha shook her head and said, "I won't choose any of them." As soon as he said that, everyone was astonished. Even Su Yuhan could not help but look at her with interest. Yi Chen said coldly, "Why?" Yu Shasha bit her lip and said, "Yi Chen, I admit that I'm tempted by the 100 million yuan, and I'm tempted to take over the Morong clan. I know that you're trying to compensate me, but there's no need for that. I'm not someone who expects favors from others, and I know my limits." At this point, she smiled sweetly again. "If you really want to thank me, just treat me to a good meal." Hearing this, Morong Shui was over the moon. She wanted to stand up by instinct and tell Yi Chen that she could do it. "I choose you." However, Yi Chen made the decision while looking at Yu Shasha. He turned his head to look at Morong Yen next to him after saying that. He pointed at Yu Shasha and said, "He'll be my representative from now on. You guys must listen to him and don't resist. If you can't do it at all, there's no need for the Morong clan to exist anymore." Morong Yen secretly jolted upon sensing the coldness in his words. He said immediately, "We'll definitely support her. Don't worry." Morong Shui was so mad that she almost bled when she saw Yu Shasha become the Morong clan leader without even realizing it. She wanted to ask Yi Chen why, but she did not have the courage to do so. After the meal, a member of the Morong clan walked in quickly and said respectfully, "Master, there are a lot of Gan province's big shots outside who want to see you." Alright, they also brought a lot of gift. One of them even brought a 1,000-year-old ginseng. "Tell them that I'm busy. Get them to leave the things behind." Yi Chen carried the little girl and did not even turn his head. He added at the end of his sentence, "Those who brought the 1,000-year-old ginseng can stay." The person walked out after being stunned for a moment. Yi Chen then looked at Morong Yen. "Where's the spiritual medicine mountain?" It's in Longnan." Morong Yen was secretly shocked. Clearly, he thought that Yi Chen was going to attack the spiritual medicine mountain. "Yi Chen, are you going to Longnan?" Su Yuhan, who was standing aside, said rather unhappily while frowning. They had agreed to return to Tianan to get married after settling the matters with the Ghost Rider sect. However, this guy had made things worse. Ha, men are all pigs. Yi Chen was not sure whether to laugh or cry upon hearing her complaint. He said, "Someone owes me something, so I'm going there to collect the debt." He had to go to the spiritual medicine mountain. He wanted to see if there were any herbs that he could use in the only alchemy sect left in China. Moreover, was it that easy to go back on his word? Murong Yen left with his people after telling Yi Chen more about the spiritual medicine mountain, leaving the space for Yi Chen's family. On the other hand, Murong Shui stayed behind on purpose. After Yu Shasha left, she turned her head to look at Yi Chen with a conflicted expression. She said weakly, "Actually, I can take over the Murong clan." She had been holding that in for a long time. Nobody would be willing to be under someone else. Tip: please rest your eyes when reading for a long time. Recommended reading. Moreover, it was her. No matter where she was, Yu Shasha was worse than her. Although they were best friends, she, Murong Shui, was always the one making the decisions. Now, her best friend was above her all of a sudden. How was she supposed to take it? Therefore, she stayed behind Yu Shasha's back on purpose. She wanted Yi Chen to change his mind. However, Yi Chen gave a short response and said in a neutral tone, "I know. You may leave now." Murong Shui was slightly stunned. She said again, unwilling to give up, "Shasha can't control the Murong clan's elders, but I can. You really should consider it." She could not help but feel rather proud as she spoke to this point. "I asked you to get lost. Didn't you hear me?" Yi Chen lifted his eyes to look at her, his voice extremely cold. Murong Shui frowned. I admit that no matter if it's your character, ability, or appearance, you're more powerful than Yu Shasha. Not just a little bit more powerful." Yi Chen chuckled softly. His gaze was extremely deep. "But so what? I don't like you. Your so-called schemes are just petty tricks to me. I, Yi Chen, don't want capable people. I want people who listen to me." "I can," Murong Shui said immediately. "You can't." Yi Chen interrupted her, his smile rather cold. "In the entire Ganzhou, only you and Yu Shasha are close to me. However, when I killed Murong Yang and the Murong clan came after me, Yu Shasha was the only one who got hurt. You were safe." "Don't tell me that you're safe because you're from the Murong clan? Don't think that I don't know what role you played in this." Murong Shui panicked a little when she met his gaze. She looked around. In reality, on the day that Yi Chen was exposed as the murderer, Murong Shui wanted to betray Yi Chen to get the opportunity to enter the Murong clan's upper echelon. However, she ended up dragging Yu Shasha into this instead. She smiled bitterly and walked out without saying a word. Under Yi Chen's stare, she felt that she had no secrets at all. He was right. Her shrewdness was just petty tricks to him. Petty tricks. After she left, Yi Chen called Murong Yen over and asked, "Where's the person who brought the 1,000-year-old ginseng?" Chapter 301. In the living room of the Murong family. Sui Meng Xiaosua said. Two figures sat on the sofa, looking out of the living room from time to time. There was some nervousness and apprehension between their brows. They were Hui Yushan and his daughter. Hui Sisi stood up and paced back and forth in the living room. She was very restless. Eventually, she could not help but look at Hui Yushan, who was standing aside. "Dad, what do you mean by Yi? He took our 1,000-year-old ginseng, but he didn't come out for half a day." "Watch your words, watch your words." Hui Yushan looked outside the house immediately. He glared at her when he saw that there was no one around. Spiritual Master Yi is not only a martial Dao master, but he's also an illuminating God spell master. You can't be so rude. Only then did Hui Sisi stop talking and mumbled, "Do you think that Yi is trying to deny us that 1,000-year-old ginseng?" One had to know that the 1,000-year-old ginseng was an heirloom of the Hui family's dojo. Hui Yushan treasured it so much that he never let anyone touch it. He couldn't bear to eat it even when he was injured from sparring. Just when Hui Yushan was going to speak, he suddenly looked out of the living room. He saw Yi Chen walking over. I'm sorry to have kept you guys waiting. No, no. Hui Yushan hurriedly smiled. Hua Sisi secretly curled her lip. Yi Chen said while smiling calmly after getting him to take a seat, I wonder where you got the 1,000-year-old ginseng from, Master Hua? It's a family heirloom. It's said that the third generation of the Hua family won it in a martial arts competition abroad, Hui Yushan explained. Yi Chen nodded and went straight to the point. Since Master Hua gave me the ancestral item, I'm sure there's something you need my help with. Just tell me. 1,000-year-old herb was extremely rare even in the cultivation world, let alone on Earth. Moreover, even if he had the immortal drift bottle, it would take a long time to cultivate a 1,000-year-old herb. Hui Yushan stood up and clasped his fists at Yi Chen. He said in all seriousness, if I'm not mistaken, Sage Yi is the number 1 in China, the number 1 on the heaven leaderboard, Mad Southern Yi. As soon as he said that, Hua Sisi was stunned and stammered, Dad, what did you say? He's Mad Southern Yi? It was no wonder she was so shocked. The world only knew the name of Mad Southern Yi, but they did not know that his real name was Yi Chen. Moreover, Yi Chen had always been active in Tiannan, Jiangbei, and Beijing. He met their gazes. Yi Chen smiled lightly and silently admitted it. Rumor has it that Mad Southern Yi is only 30 years old and likes to exterminate families. It seems like it's true. Hui Yushan sighed softly. Hua Sisi's face immediately turned red. After hearing that Yi Chen was Mad Southern Yi, she suddenly felt very shy as if she was facing her idol at a close distance. I like exterminating entire families? Yi Chen was between laughter and tears when he heard that. Hui Yushan took a deep breath and said, Mr. Yi, I've been stuck below the innate stage for a very long time. Today, I'll be thick-skinned and ask for guidance from you. Are you trying to break through to the innate stage and become a martial Dao master? Yi Chen glanced at him and came to a realization when he noticed that his cultivation base was at the peak of illuminating pulse. Hui Yushan immediately nodded. This was the lifelong determination of every martial artist. Yi Chen chuckled softly. It's not impossible for you to break through to the innate stage, but you have to promise me something. Please tell me what it is, Mr. Yi. Joy flashed through Hui Yushan's face. If I help you break through to Martial Dao Master, you'll be the Murong clan's advisor and help me support Yushasha. The time limit is 10 years. You can stay or leave after 10 years, Yi Chen said. I'm willing. Hui Yushan agreed to it almost without thinking about it. 10 years. Only 10 years. Not only could he become a Martial Dao Master, but he could also enjoy the Murong clan's advisor. It was such a great deal that nobody would reject. Can you really help my dad break through? Hua Sisi looked surprised. Yi Chen smiled and a red medicinal pill appeared in his hand. This is the Martial Alliance's breakthrough pill. I don't think I need to tell you about its effect, do I? What? Hui Yushan was shocked and in slight disbelief. Is it the medicinal pill that can help an illuminating pulse martial artist break through to the innate stage instantly? You'll know after you eat it. Yi Chen smiled. With a flick of his finger, the medicinal pill landed in his hand. Although such a medicinal pill was nothing to him, it was no different from a magical pill to others. Hui Yushan swallowed it in excitement as soon as he took it. Subsequently, he felt the medicinal pill turn into an extremely pure energy that flowed into his body. Perhaps because the energy was too violent, it directly tore through his clothes, and his skin also cracked into countless wounds. Dad. Hua Sisi's expression changed. Don't worry. He's just too eager for success. Yi Chen shook his head and flicked his finger. Spiritual energy shot into Hui Yushan's body, suppressing the violent energy in his body. Over 20 minutes later, as the sound of beans being fried came, a shocking energy exploded from Hui Yushan's body all of a sudden. The white hair on his head turned from white to black, while the wrinkles on his face faded away slowly. If he looked like he was 50 years old earlier, he looked like a hunk in his 30s at the moment. Ah! Hui Yushan opened his eyes, and a gleam shot out of them. His aura was shocking, and he could not hide the elation on his face. Dad, you broke through? Hui Sisi was pleasantly surprised. Hui Yushan nodded and turned his head to bow at Yi Chen in all seriousness. He said while clasping his fists, "Thank you for your help, Mr. Yi. What you've done is no different from giving me a new lease on life. I'll definitely keep my promise." Meanwhile, a storm was set off in his heart. What Yi Chen did was equivalent to creating a martial Dao master. Didn't that mean that he could create even more? For example, 10, 100, or even 1,000. At that time, how terrifying would that be? Not to mention 1,000, even if 100 grandmasters joined forces and flew directly to Japan, it would be enough to sink the country. Of course, this was only in theory. Although martial Dao grandmasters were powerful, they were still afraid of missiles. However, he was overthinking. Yi Chen only had a few breakthrough pills with him, and they were obtained from the Martial Alliance's treasure vault. Although he could refine them, he lacked the materials. Furthermore, the zone-breaking pill could only be used on illuminating pulse expert. It would not be easy for him to find hundreds of loyal illuminating pulse experts in such a short time. Hui Sisi was equally grateful. "Grandmaster Yi, thank you." "You're welcome. I'm just taking what I need." Yi Chen shook his head and said, "You and your daughter can move to the Murong residence from now on. You can bring your dojo here too." Hui Yushan nodded in agreement. At the same time, at the spiritual medicine mountain, Yao Bingyue stared blankly at the video on her phone. The video showed Yi Chen fighting Murong He until he killed Murong He. Clatter! Her body jolted, and her phone dropped onto the ground. Her face was pale and filled with intense fear. Murong He is dead. One must know that he was an illuminating god expert just like her grandfather. Since Yi Chen could kill him, did that not mean that he could kill her grandfather too? A strong sense of regret emerged in his heart. Murong He is dead. He'll definitely come for me. Her face was getting paler as she thought to this point. Subsequently, it was replaced by a smirk again. My spiritual medicine mountain has a registration technique. Even if he comes, he can't do anything to me. P.S. There's one more chapter. ETA, 12:30 p.m. Chapter 302. The second day after Murong family's matters were settled, Yi Chen walked out of the Murong residence with the mother and daughter. There was a red Renault Sherpa parked at the entrance. The car looked very mechanical. Yi Chen could not help but be surprised. One must know that although such a car only cost over 2 million yuan, it was the standard off-road vehicle for NATO troop. It even shocked the world at the Dakar rally. Yu Shasha said while standing aside, "Brother Yi, if you guys are going to Longnan, the mountain roads won't be easy. Just drive these two off-road vehicles." Ever since Yi Chen appointed her to manage the Murong clan yesterday, the girl had shown a side of her that she had never shown before. Although she was still a little immature, Yi Chen thought highly of her. There were old people in the Murong clan who were not convinced. However, when Hui Yushan unleashed his master's aura, everyone had to be convinced. "Thanks." Yi Chen nodded in satisfaction. He carried Meng Meng and sat in the car while Yi Wushuang sat in the passenger seat. After everyone was seated, Yu Shasha was a little reluctant all of a sudden. "Brother Yi, are you guys coming back?" "No, we'll go to Lanzhou directly." Yi Chen shook his head. Yu Shasha said with red eyes, "Brother Yi, Sister Su, Brother Wushuang, you guys must come back to visit me when you're free. I can visit you guys too." "Sure." Yi Chen nodded and drove away after starting the car. Yu Shasha watched the car drive away and was in a daze. "Brother Yi, I know that we're not from the same world. I also know that you gave me everything that I have today. Don't worry. I definitely won't let you down. I'll strive to be one step closer to you." To be honest, the off-road vehicle that Yu Shasha gave him was extraordinarily stable. As soon as Yi Chen drove out of the suburbs of Longxi County, the road became much more bumpy. However, the people in the car still felt like they were driving on flat ground. Su Yuhan, on the other hand, covered her mouth, feeling rather uncomfortable. What's wrong? Carsick? Yi Chen stopped and turned his head to ask. A little. I'm not sure if it's because it's a new car, but I can't shake the stench in the car, Su Yuhan said while looking pale. Noticing that her mother was uncomfortable, the little girl took out a tangerine and said obediently, Here, have a tangerine, Mommy. Give me your hand, Yi Chen said while smiling. What happened? Su Yuhan was stunned, but she extended her hand to him anyway. Yi Chen held her soft little hand and lowered his head to kiss it. All right, you won't get carsick now. Die. Su Yuhan was so angry that she almost slapped him. I'm already in this state, and you still have the mood to take advantage of me and joke with me. Besides, Wu Shuang is still watching from the side. But in the next moment, she discovered that a warm current flowed from the back of her hand into her body. When it reached her chest, the previous nausea disappeared. Yi Chen said while smiling, Do you believe me now? Scram. Su Yuhan glared at him angrily. Drive your car properly. I'll call my parents first and ask them how they're doing. Yi Chen could only start the engine again. He found out from Murong Yen that the spiritual medicine mountain was located in Ganlu town in the Longnan County. On the map, it was more than 500 miles away from Longxi. However, based on the exact route, it should be more than 800 miles away. The spiritual medicine mountain had been in Ganlu town since 200 years ago due to their expertise in refining medicinal pills and medicine. They had a high prestige in the local area. Anyone who walked out of the spiritual medicine mountain was treated as an immortal, a living god. Although they only lived in a small town, they were famous in the entire China. In reality, that was the reality of the cultivation world. In the cultivation world, cultivators would stay away from the secular world and hide in the famous mountains and rivers. Peace and quiet were secondary, but the main reason was that there were many trees in the forest. In terms of spiritual energy, it was much more abundant than in the secular world. The Murong clan was an example. Their influence covered the entire Ganzhou, but they settled their ancestral home in a county and organized a medicinal pill exchange. All the bosses in Ganzhou came all the way here. Yi Chen's car drove into a small town when it was close to past 10 am, recalling that Su Yuhan and Meng Meng had not had breakfast before they left. Yi Chen parked the car at the entrance of a restaurant. He went to the gas station to refuel after the mother and daughter had eaten. Just when Yi Chen parked the car at the gas station, a piece of chewing gum floated over. Yi Chen lifted his arm and waved, and the piece of chewing gum fell onto the ground. He looked in the direction where the chewing gum came from with a grim expression. He saw a Land Rover Range Rover parked in front of him. There was an old man in Armani and a Chinese tunic suit in the car. The young man's back was facing him. Seeming to have sensed Yi Chen's gaze, the young man peeked his head out of the car window to look at Yi Chen. He exclaimed, Yo, I can't believe I saw a Renault Sherpa in this lousy place. He could not help but ask Yi Chen as he spoke to this point, Brat, where did you get it? Yi Chen looked away and did not look at him anymore. The young man was rather pissed that he ignored him. He wanted to get out of the car by instinct, but the old man in the Chinese tunic suit next to him said in his deep voice, Young Master Yang, don't be a busybody. Only then did young Master Yang close the car door with a curse. The Renault Sherpa wasn't worth much, especially in the eyes of the Yang family. He was just surprised. Soon, his tank was full. He started the engine and drove out. Yi Chen drove to the fuel depot and filled it with 60 liters of fuel. In fact, he had an idea. Should he knock out the staff at the gas station and collect some gasoline to store in his storage ring for backup? But after thinking about it, he decided not to. After filling up the tank, Yi Chen drove out of the gas station and headed to the mountain road that led to Longnan. At that moment, a Land Rover drove over from behind and drove side by side with him. The young man from before peeked his head out of the car and gave Yi Chen the middle finger. "Brat, do you dare to race with me?" He was upset that Yi Chen ignored him earlier. He initially thought that they would part ways at the gas station. Never had he thought that they would go the same way. Thus, he couldn't help but feel competitive. Hearing this, the old man beside him spoke up once more. "Young Master Yang, don't worry about it, Mr. Wan. I'm just competing with him in terms of speed." Young Master Yang shook his head, not bothered at all. He looked at Yi Chen again. "Brat, do you dare?" Chapter 303. After exchanging a punch with Yi Chen's expression changed drastically. The giant medicine man only managed to stop after being pushed over 20 meters away. Meanwhile, there was a long ravine between him and Yi Chen. The gully was more than 10 feet wide. The moment Yao Huiyuan exclaimed, the smile on Yao Bingyue's face froze. She was in disbelief. Yang Feiyu and Wan Qian were already stunned on the spot. There was intense fear in Yao Huiyuan's eyes when he looked at Yi Chen. "Young man, do you know the body tempering method too? Is this what you're relying on?" Yi Chen said with his hands behind his back. Yao Huiyuan smiled coldly. "You underestimate me too much, and you also underestimate the medicine man. That was just a warm-up. Now I'll let you experience what true despair is." The bell in his hand rang again, and at the same time, he suddenly shouted, "Medicine man, use the giant devil body refining technique." As his voice fell, the giant in the distance suddenly let out a roar. Clatter, clatter, clatter. A series of crisp sounds came from his body, and he actually began to swell. His arms, which were originally as thick as an adult's thigh, suddenly became as thick as a water bucket. The muscles and blue veins on them were like poisonous snakes baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Bang! The clothes on his body suddenly burst open and turned into shreds, and his original height of 2.5 meters had skyrocketed to more than 3 meters. From afar, he looked like a giant humanoid titan. His entire body was filled with a violent aura that wanted to destroy everything. "Junior, this is the Herbman's ultimate battle power. The reason why I am unwilling to use it is because I can only use it once. Once I use it, the price is that the Herbman's potential will be exhausted." "But you forced me to do this." Yao Huiyuan's gloomy voice rang out, "Medicine man, kill him!" Bang! 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 The giant sprinted toward Yi Chen. Just like before, the ground would shake violently with every step he took, creating a huge hole under his feet. The next moment, the giant suddenly opened his arms and pounced at Yi Chen. Clearly, he wanted to hug Yi Chen and strangle him with brute force. Yang Feiyu could not help but swallow his saliva. Goodness gracious! If you were hugged by this blockhead, your bones would be crushed to pieces, and you might even be crushed into a meat patty. Stubborn fool! Yi Chen scoffed and grabbed a stone lion next to him. The stone lion that weighed 2 tons was caught in his hand. Roar! The stone lion seemed to have come to life, and its huge body immediately smashed towards the giant. The giant roared angrily and hurriedly retracted his hands before punching the stone lion. Boom! The stone lion suddenly exploded, and countless gravel scattered in all directions. Yao Huiyuan and Wan Qian simultaneously condensed a profound chi barrier, which intercepted the gravel flying towards them. He looked again. The giant's huge body was like a ball that was kicked away. It flew backward for hundreds of meters and finally smashed into a stone wall, creating a human-shaped hole. Plop! He knelt heavily on the ground, his body twitching uncontrollably. His arms hung limply at his side, clearly broken. Yang Feiyu, Wan Qian, and the rest who were standing aside were so shocked that their eyeballs almost popped out. That was a giant that weighed 700 to 800 kilograms, but he was like a half-grown baby facing Yi Chen now. This man must be a physique refinement master. Yao Huiyuan's expression was uncertain. He could not think of anyone in China who had such a powerful body and strength. On top of that, he was a spell master as well. They say that the China #1, Mad Southern Yi, is extremely powerful. To me, I don't think the junior before me is any weaker than Mad Southern Yi. Damn it. I can't believe that my spiritual medicine mountain has offended such a person. Yao Huayuan thought to himself, but he did not hesitate at all. He pulled out a sharp blade from behind him. The blade was rusted all over, and there were runes and incantations made with cinnabar around it. It exuded a heavy, ancient, and desolate aura as soon as he pulled it out. Is that a magic tool? Wan Qian's expression changed slightly. Meanwhile, Yao Bingwei revealed an excited expression. Junior, this is the ancient saber that's been passed down in the spiritual medicine mountain for generations. It's called the Master Destruction Saber. Every mountain master of the spiritual medicine mountain has used it to kill a master. I've never used it in my generation. Forget it. I'll use your blood to scare the people in the outside world. Yao Huayuan held the Master Destruction Saber before his chest and consolidated majestic mysterious qi. Subsequently, he swung it at Yi Chen in the air. Slash. A sharp saber qi shot out of the saber. At that moment, an ear-piercing explosion came in the air as the saber qi tore it apart. The saber qi split the ground into two as it charged at Yi Chen, creating a long ravine. The Master Destruction Saber? Wan Qian exclaimed. Clearly, he recognized it. During the few years that he was learning from the leader of Hong Kong's southern sect, Xiao Bai, he had heard that the spiritual medicine mountain had a saber that had been passed down for generations. The saber rarely appeared, but a martial Dao master would be killed by it every time it appeared. Back then, he thought it was just a rumor. Never had he thought that it was real. Yao Bingwei smiled. Yi Chen, don't you have a powerful body? Take it with your body if you're so capable. Humph. Yi Chen scoffed and stretched his arm out. He really grabbed the sharp saber qi with his fingers, as if he was provoked by what Yao Bingwei said. Idiot. Yao Bingwei chuckled. This saber can kill a master, but you're grabbing it with your bare hands. You're asking for death. Gotcha. In the next second, the sharp saber qi that could slice a car into half was stopped by Yi Chen's fingers directly. Yi Chen used a little force. He crushed the saber qi instantly, turning it into chaotic and sharp energy that charged at Yao Huayuan. Caught off guard, Yao Huayuan was hit by a couple of energy. His right arm was severed by the energy. Ah! He shrieked and knelt onto the ground. Blood splattered on Yao Bingwei's face. Dead silence filled the place. He had lost. Yao Huayuan had lost. Yao Huayuan had used everything he had. First, it was the mountain defense formation, followed by the martial Dao master puppet, and then the Master Destruction Saber. Such a technique was enough to kill any martial Dao master. However, Yi Chen had broken through it completely. He was too powerful. He was too terrifying. Yang Feiyu and Wan Qian were shaking inside. Is this the spiritual medicine mountain's technique? That's all you got. How dare you go back on your word? Yi Chen scoffed and walked toward Yao Huayuan one step after another. The killing intent on his body grew with each step he took. Yao Huayuan had despair on his face. Yao Bingwei looked at Yi Chen, who was walking over with fear written all over her face. Her body could not stop shaking. She suddenly knelt hard onto the ground and kowtowed like she was pounding garlic. No, don't kill us. Yi Chen, Master Yi, I apologize to you. We'll agree to whatever you want. Chapter 304. Mr. Yi, I was wrong. I was wrong. Yao Bingwei kowtowed so hard that her forehead soon broke. There were blood stains all over the ground. It was a terrifying sight. Yi Chen's series of techniques had completely crushed her psychological defense. He had even crushed her pride and dignity. At that moment, she finally knew what kind of person she had offended for the spiritual medicine mountain. If she had the chance to regret, she definitely would not have scammed Yi Chen for the heart-repairing pill. Instead, she would have traded with him nicely. She would not have encouraged Murong Yang to attack Yi Chen. Mr. Yi, it's our fault. Yao Huayuan, who had lost an arm, struggled to stand up from the ground. He looked even older now. It's my fault for not teaching Bingyue what she did. I, Yao Huayuan, am willing to give you an explanation. I just hope that you can spare Bingyue's life. Yi Chen chuckled softly. What explanation are you going to give me? I can agree to all of your conditions, Mr. Yi. You can take whatever you want from the entire spiritual medicine mountain. Yao Huayuan forced a smile. He knew very well what his decision meant. However, what was the use of that? They were in the wrong first, and they were no match for Yi Chen. They could only suffer in silence. Standing aside, Wan Qian watched everything with a complicated expression. Who would have thought that the spiritual medicine mountain that everyone in China yearned for, that had been passed down for hundreds of years, would end up like this? It was all because they had offended a young man. If news of this got out, people would definitely be so shocked that they would be speechless. What do you think, Mr. Yi? Yao Huayuan looked at Yi Chen with a pleading expression. To him, he had given in a lot. He thought that Yi Chen's rage should be almost gone now. It's not enough. However, Yi Chen shook his head. Yao Huayuan's face turned pale as soon as he said that. He looked even older now. Blood was dripping from the corner of his lip. I wonder if it's enough if I kill myself before you today, Mr. Yi? He had a son when he was old, but his son had died young due to a serious illness. Yao Bingyue was his only granddaughter now. He was afraid that she would melt in his mouth and fall in his hands. Therefore, he had spoiled Yao Bingyue's lawless personality. Grandpa Yao Bingyue screamed and said to Yi Chen immediately, Mr. Yi, it has nothing to do with my grandpa. It's all my fault. I'm willing to give you an explanation. After saying this, a look of determination flashed across her face. A dagger appeared in her hand, and she stabbed it directly at the position of her heart. Bingyue, don't! Yao Huayuan's face changed, but it was already too late by the time he wanted to stop it. He couldn't help feeling despair. Ding! Yi Chen flicked his finger, and a spiritual power spiral shot at Yao Bingyue directly. The dagger in her hand flew out just when it was about to pierce her body. Mr. Yi, what exactly do you want to do? Yao Bingyue had a bitter expression on her face. Yi Chen took a step out and said, although you guys deserve death for offending me, considering that you guys are the only descendants of the spiritual medicine mountain, you guys are still useful to me. Therefore, hearing this, Yao Huayuan and Yao Bingyue were overjoyed. However, he heard Yi Chen say, you can avoid death, but you can't escape punishment. He raised his hand and pointed at Yao Huayuan, who was beside him, and cast a cultivation spell, soul-seizing life-extinguishing finger. You clearly knew that your granddaughter was in the wrong first, yet you still shielded her and even tried to kill me. Therefore, I will take 3 years of your lifespan as punishment. His voice fell. Yao Huayuan's body emitted a green light. As soon as the light left his body, Yao Huayuan's body rapidly aged. His face suddenly became extremely pale and his hair turned white. His old face now looked like the bark of a tree. Plop! He felt as if his body had been sucked dry. He no longer had the strength to stand and fell heavily to the ground. He was like an old man with one foot in the grave. He could not help but be shocked because Yi Chen's finger had directly taken away his life force, essence, and spirit. He only had less than 5 years of lifespan. Now that Yi Chen had taken away 3 years, he had less than 2 years left. However, Yi Chen ignored him. Instead, he looked at Yao Bingyue. You were greedy when you saw the benefit. That's unjust. Then you broke the promise. That's not sincere. I'll take 50 years of your lifespan today. Yi Chen pointed again when the last one landed. The next moment, Yao Bingyue's originally black and beautiful hair suddenly turned white. Her originally delicate skin quickly wrinkled, and her tall and exquisite body began to shrink. Her body slightly bent, and she turned into a hunchbacked old woman. No! No! Yao Bingyue was terrified. Her voice was extremely sharp and hoarse like an old woman's. To every woman, the most precious thing was their youth, beauty, and body. Now, Yi Chen had taken away all of her pride. It was more painful than killing her. However, no matter how she screamed, she could not change the truth. Yang Feiyu and Wan Qian had goosebumps watching that. Wan Qian, in particular, was the successor of the southern sect of Hong Kong. He claimed to be knowledgeable, but he had never seen such a strange scene. What technique was that? It could take away a person's lifespan by force. It was even more powerful than the legendary Book of Life and Death and the Judge's Brush. Wan Qian's respect for Yi Chen rose to the peak as he thought to this point. It's a godly technique. It's definitely a godly technique. Yang Feiyu retreated a few steps back, not daring to get close to Yi Chen at all. He was afraid that Yi Chen would point at him all of a sudden. I'm still so handsome, and there are so many chicks waiting for me. I can't be like them. Yao Huayuan sat on the ground, panting heavily. He looked at Yi Chen extremely weakly and said while slurring, "And Mr. Yi, please kill me. I'm begging you. I am so tired." He felt even worse than before. It was as if even moving was tiring. Most importantly, all the organs in his body had failed. Sooner or later, there would be all sorts of complications. By then, he would be in excruciating pain. It was something that every old man feared to face. At that moment, Su Yuhan walked over while carrying the little girl. She said with pity on her pretty face, "Yi Chen, have we been too cruel?" Yi Chen shook his head lightly and looked at Yao Huayuan and his granddaughter in a condescending manner. He said expressionlessly, "You guys must know that I can make you guys live, and I can make you guys die. I can make you guys old, and I can make you guys younger. The reason why I'm not killing you guys is that you guys are still useful to me. As long as you guys perform well from now on and be loyal to me, I can consider returning you guys your youth." Yao Huayuan and Yao Bingyue's despairing faces lit up with a glimmer of hope. No one was not afraid of death. No one would not care about their appearance. Even they were no exception. Yi Chen said calmly when he met their gazes, "To tell you the truth, not only can I refine the heart-repairing pill that can increase one's lifespan, but I can also refine the youth restoration pill and the youth restoration pill." Hearing this, everyone was so shocked that they couldn't say a word. A moment later, Yao Huayuan stood up shakily with Yao Bingyue's support. He bowed at Yi Chen and stammered, "From now on, the Spiritual Medicine Mountain will respect you, sir." Chapter 305. From now on, I, Yao Bingyue, swear to be loyal to Mr. Yi. If I go against him, I'll be abandoned by both man and God. Yao Bingyue followed Yao Huayuan's actions and expressed her loyalty to Yi Chen. However, she was secretly bitter. She knew that the spiritual medicine mountain that her Yao family had passed down for hundreds of years now belonged to Yi Chen. It would be a lie to say that he did not feel heartache. But what could he do? Both of them had their lifespans taken away by Yi Chen. If they did not accept him, they definitely would not live for more than a few years. When they were dead, the spiritual medicine mountain would still belong to Yi Chen. Yi Chen nodded and lifted his eyes to look at Yang Feiyu and Wan Qian next to him. Meeting his gaze, Yang Feiyu subconsciously said, "Brother Yi, oh no, Mr. Yi, we still have something to do, so we won't stay any longer." With that, he grabbed Wan Qian's hand and was about to leave. Now, he dared not call Yi Chen brother anymore. Wan Qian clasped his fists at Yi Chen. "Wait!" Yi Chen suddenly stopped them. Yang Feiyu turned around and looked at him anxiously. He stammered, "Brother Yi, don't point at me. I didn't offend you." He was afraid that Yi Chen would suddenly point at him. Even Wan Qian's face turned pale. He thought Yi Chen was going to blame him for underestimating him earlier. Yi Chen was in between tears and laughter when he saw the duo keeping quiet. "Brother Yang, didn't you come to the spiritual medicine mountain to get medicine for your father? What? Now you don't want it anymore?" Yang Feiyu rolled his eyes and thought to himself, with the situation like this, do I still dare to speak? However, he realized what Yi Chen was trying to say. He was elated. What do you mean, Mr. Yi? Yi Chen flicked his finger and a red medicinal pill shot at him. He said calmly, this is a body refinement pill. It's enough to save your father. Take it. Yang Feiyu subconsciously grabbed the body tempering pill in his hand and examined it closely. He saw that the pill in his hand had a red glow to it, and it was also emitting a strange medicinal fragrance. Just smelling it made him feel 100 times more spirited. He could not help but be ecstatic. Mr. Yi, can this really cure my father's uremia? Of course. Yi Chen smiled calmly. Treating uremia aside, he could even treat cancer without a problem. At the same time, Wan Xian also felt the uniqueness of the body-tempering pill and couldn't help but exclaim, This is a top-grade medicinal pill? What's a supreme-grade medicinal pill? Yi Chen was surprised. The body-tempering pill was just an elixir that he had casually refined. The medicinal ingredients used were not very precious. In the cultivation world, it was not worth much. Yao Huayuan, who was at the side, coughed violently a few times and said slowly, Mr. Yi, we've divided the medicinal pills into a few grades. They are low-grade medicinal pills, middle-grade medicinal pills, high-grade medicinal pills, and supreme-grade medicinal pills. The quality of the medicinal pills can be distinguished by their color. At this point, he paused for a moment. The body-tempering pill that Mr. Yi took out is a supreme-grade pill. Even I can't refine it. Not bad. Wan Qian nodded and looked at Yang Feiyu enviously. This body-refining pill was not only useful for ordinary people, but it was also very useful for him. Oh, Yi Chen responded calmly. In the cultivation world, medicinal pills were categorized from grade 1 to grade 9. Those above grade 9 were immortal pills. The so-called supreme-grade medicinal pills that Yao Huayuan and the rest mentioned were grade 2 at most in the cultivation world. Mr. Yi, I wonder what price you'll have to pay for your generosity? Yang Feiyu asked. As a member of the Yang family of Hong Kong, naturally, he knew that there was no free lunch in this world. There's no need for that. I just like how you look. Yi Chen shook his head lightly. Along the way, he admired Yang Feiyu's character. Although he was a little arrogant as a disciple of a wealthy family, he was not arrogant or domineering. Thank you. I'll bring my dad here to thank you personally when he recovers. Yang Feiyu bowed to Yi Chen in all seriousness and left with Wan Qian. Yi Chen lifted his eyes to look at Yao Huayuan. Let's go. Bring us to your spiritual medicine mountain. Yao Huayuan nodded, feeling bitter inside. Yi Chen brought Su Yuhan and Meng Meng with him, and followed immediately. There were mountains and rivers everywhere they passed. The spiritual energy did not dissipate. Even an ordinary person like Su Yuhan could sense the uniqueness of this place. Countless people from the spiritual medicine mountain who were standing by the side of the road stepped aside and made way for Yi Chen. They had complicated expressions on their faces. From now on, the spiritual medicine mountain would no longer belong to the Yao family, but to the Yi family. Over 10 minutes later, Yao Huayuan brought Yi Chen to a spacious place. There were trapezoidal spiritual fields as far as the eye could see. There were dense medicinal herbs planted in the spiritual field. Jade Reishi mushroom, 50 years old, one of the ingredients used to refine the foundation building pill. Its roots can also be boiled into soup and consumed to replenish spiritual energy. Fire pomegranate fruit, 30 years old. Ordinary people can see better after eating it. It's very effective in treating myopia and presbyopia. Silver horn tree, 500 years old. Its branches resemble silver horns and can be used to refine flying swords and other would attribute magic tools. Tiger bone flower. Yi Chen scanned with his divine consciousness and identified all of the medicinal herbs before him. Most of them were ordinary medicinal herbs in the mortal world such as tianqi. However, there were some medicinal herbs that he could use. There were even tiger bone flowers and stargrass. He now had the medicinal herbs to refine medicinal pills for his daughter and the youth-retaining pill. He nodded to himself. He did not come for nothing. At that moment, he suddenly stopped walking and looked at a spiritual field 100 meters away. Subsequently, he walked to a plant that looked like wheat and exclaimed, "It's a spiritual grain." "Mr. Yi, what's a spiritual grain?" Yao Huayuan asked while panting as he was being held. He felt exhausted just by taking 2 steps. Yi Chen glanced at him. "Since you don't know what it's used for, why did you plant it here?" "We didn't plant it. It grew on its own. We thought it was a weed in the beginning, so we were going to uproot it," Yao Bingwa said while shaking her head. "Uproot it?" Hearing this, Yi Chen had the urge to slap them to death. He shook his head and said, "This is good stuff. The so-called spiritual grain is a plant that's different from ordinary rice. When its seeds are cooked into rice, they contain spiritual energy. Ordinary people can get rid of all diseases and strengthen their physique after eating it. Cultivators can improve their cultivation base after eating it. In the cultivation world, not all cultivators didn't eat. Some cultivators with low cultivation levels who didn't abstain from eating still needed to eat. And what he was eating was spiritual grains. This kind of thing was usually cultivated by the sect in the spirit fields, and it was taken care of by the low-level disciples. Yao Huayuan and Yao Bingwe were dumbstruck when they heard what Yi Chen said. Subsequently, they looked relieved. Food is the heaven of the people. Even the head of state was no exception. If they were to cultivate spiritual grains on a large scale and sell them to the public, it would cause an earthquake and would instantly overshadow Yuan Longping's hybrid rice. When we get back, get people to move all the herbs around the spirit grains, and specially clear out a few spirit fields to plant spirit grains. Yi Chen instructed and said, "Bring me to the so-called treasures of the spiritual medicine mountain now." Chapter 306. Under Yao Huayuan's lead, Yi Chen arrived at the spiritual medicine mountain's forbidden area. The so-called forbidden area was actually a small palace that was built on its own. There were 4 old men guarding the entrance of the palace. Yi Chen scanned with his divine consciousness and realized that the 4 old men had a powerful cultivation base. They seemed to be on peak stage Dao entry. Such people would be bosses if they were outside. However, they were guarding the medicine pavilion now. Judging by that, it was no wonder that the spiritual medicine mountain had such a high position in China. "Mr. Yi, these 4 are the spiritual medicine mountain's guardian elders. Each of them has a key. To open the palace's door, you'll need my key and theirs," Yao Huayuan introduced while shaking. Yao Huayuan introduced with a trembling voice. Then, he took out his key and ordered, "Old Qi, please open the door of the medicine pavilion." The person called Old Qi was an old man in gray robes. He glanced at Yi Chen in fear and subsequently nodded at the other 3. They inserted their keys into the lock of the palace's door. The 5 keys rotated according to the 5 elements. Kacha. The door opened. Just when Yi Chen was going in, Old Qi suddenly asked, "Mr. Yi, I wonder what you're going to do with my spiritual medicine mountain?" "I'll only take what I need. I won't touch the rest. You guys will take care of it," Yi Chen said while chuckling softly. He knew that the few of them were worried that he would take away all the things that they had collected for hundreds of years. If he were in the cultivation world, Yi Chen would definitely do that without hesitation. However, he was on Earth now where resources were limited. Moreover, Yao Huayuan had surrendered to him, so it was unnecessary. Old Qi nodded lightly and retreated aside. Yao Huayuan smiled awkwardly. "Please, Mr. Yi." Yi Chen nodded and walked into the palace first. A small enclosed space that was approximately 100 square meters came into his sight. There were rows of wooden shelves with many things placed in an orderly manner on them. Su Yuhan said in shock, "There are so many things. This is my spiritual medicine mountain's medicine pavilion. It's been here for hundreds of years. Our ancestors said that we can't open the medicine pavilion unless we have to. Yao Huayuan looked bitter. Hundreds of years of savings now belonged to Yi Chen. He could not smile. Yi Chen scanned with his divine consciousness and looked through all the so-called treasures. Although he was mentally prepared, there was still a hint of joy between his brows. 100-year-old sky thunder bamboo. It is reputed to be one of the 3 great divine wood. It can release a faint golden divine devilbane thunder, which is specialized in breaking through ghost Dao technique. He immediately walked over and carefully examined the chopstick-length heaven thunder bamboo in his hand. Poochie! A faint golden bolt of lightning erupted from the heaven thunder bamboo, accompanied by a burst of crackling electric arcs. Seeing this scene, Yao Huayuan and Yao Bingyue were shocked. Clearly, they did not expect that the thing that they had kept for hundreds of years and that they had not been able to figure out would undergo such a huge change in Yi Chen's hand. "Big brother, is this sky thunder bamboo?" Yi Wushuang asked from the side. His great thunder sword came from Luoyang's Ning family. The Ning family's ancestors were a weaponsmithing family. They had unintentionally obtained a piece of heaven thunder bamboo, which was why they were able to forge the great thunder sword. "Not bad." Yi Chen smiled calmly and subsequently said while frowning, "But it's too young." What a pity. Although he said that, he wasn't disappointed at all because he still had the immortal drift bottle. He could use the immortal drift bottle to mature the heaven lightning bamboo and make it grow from 100 years to 500 years or even 1,000 years. As Yao Huayuan and Yao Bingyue watched in pain, Yi Chen put the heaven thunder bamboo away into his storage ring and looked around again. 1,000-year-old ginseng, 1,000-year-old knotweed. There were a total of 8,000-year-old herbs in the Spiritual Medicine Mountain's medicine pavilion. They were well preserved. Yi Chen secretly nodded. It seemed like the Spiritual Medicine Mountain understood that spiritual herbs had to be harvested after 1,000 years. They could not be cultivated anymore. This was because all living things had spirits, especially plants. When they reached a certain age, they would develop spiritual intelligence. When they realized that their fate was to be captured and used as medicine, they would run away. At that time, the losses would be great. Yi Chen did not take the few 1,000-year-old herbs, as they were not of much help to him. They were all mortal-grade herbs, so he might as well leave them to the Spiritual Medicine Mountain. Yao Huayuan and Yao Bingyue were relieved to see that. To them, the few 1,000-year-old herbs were no different from the Spiritual Medicine Mountain's lifeline. Subsequently, Yi Chen walked out of the medicine pavilion after putting away some things that were useful to him. Yao Huayuan arranged a place for them to stay immediately. "Daddy, I want to go play." The little Meng carried the Patriarch of Hell and chased away the butterflies and bees that were flying around outside. "Go, but don't go too far." Yi Chen kissed his daughter. The little girl ran out while carrying the Patriarch of Hell in joy. "I'll watch over her." Su Yuhan followed, feeling a little worried. At that moment, Yi Chen, Yi Wushuang, and Yao Huayuan were the only ones left in the house. Yi Chen glanced at Yao Huayuan and said all of a sudden, "Show me your Master Destruction Saber." When Yao Huayuan took out the Master Destruction Saber and swung the saber chi earlier, Yi Chen noticed that there was another aura in the saber chi. Connecting it to what Yao Huayuan had said before about many of the Spiritual Medicine Mountain's mountain masters killing martial Dao masters with this saber, Yi Chen could not help but be interested. Yao Huayuan did not suspect anything. He handed the rusty Master Destruction saber to Yi Chen immediately and walked out after closing the door. "Brother, there's something wrong with this saber," Yi Wushuang said in his deep voice. "You noticed that too?" Yi Chen glanced at him and then took a good look at the saber. However, he did not see anything out of the ordinary. He thought about it and covered the entire saber with his divine consciousness. He instantly felt a strange spiritual wave that made him dizzy. In the next second, the scene before him changed. He saw an old silhouette standing on a mountain that was tens of thousands of meters tall. He was holding a saber in his hand, and he stood still as if he had turned into a stone. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and lifted his head to look at the sky. An extremely powerful saber intent was released from his body, and the saber in his hand could not stop shaking. This man was trying to pull the saber out of the sky. At that moment, he seemed to have sensed something. He turned his head and looked straight at Yi Chen. I, the Heaven Saber, have killed my brothers, my parents, and my wife. I've killed everyone in the world. Who are you? How did it appear in my world? Could you be the Heaven Tao? Slash! He shouted as soon as he was done speaking. A saber chi that could destroy everything tore through the air and slashed at Yi Chen. If a regular person were to witness that, they would definitely stand on their feet. However, Yi Chen scoffed. How dare a mere remnant saber intent act so arrogantly before me? Chapter 307. Break it. Yi Chen activated his divine consciousness. His divine consciousness consolidated a golden longsword that was over 30 meters long in that space. The golden sword stirred a terrifying sword chi. It was like a roaring golden dragon as it slashed at the saber chi that was coming at him directly. Bang! The saber chi was crushed directly when it collided with the sword chi. The sword chi did not slow down at all and killed the old man with a single slash. Bang! The vast space was destroyed all of a sudden. Yi Chen only snapped back to his senses after taking 2 steps back. Yi Wushuang went over to hold him immediately. He asked in worry, "Brother, are you all right?" "I'm fine." Yi Chen shook his head and looked at the Master Destruction Saber again. He said, "I was right. There's some spiritual power left in this saber. Moreover, it's Saber Tao." Saber Tao? Could it be left behind by the saber's original owner? Yi Wushuang asked. It should be. Yi Chen took a deep breath in and said, "Guess what I saw in his Saber Tao?" He called himself Heaven Saber. He killed his brothers, his parents, and his wife to prove himself. He even tried to draw his saber at the sky. What happened after that? Yi Wushuang looked serious. Later on, this person's saber intent actually discovered my divine sense and slashed at me. However, I broke it and neutralized the saber intent. Yi Chen said in his deep voice, "This man's Saber Tao is extremely powerful. Moreover, it was a battle of spiritual power. Moreover, it was in his Saber Tao world. If my divine consciousness wasn't materialized at the critical moment, he might have destroyed a sliver of my divine consciousness." Speaking to this point, Yi Chen's expression seemed rather serious. Although his body was invincible, his divine consciousness and cultivation base were not impressive. He would have to pay a price to materialize his divine consciousness. If that's the case, the original owner of this saber might have achieved supreme Saber Tao. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to draw his saber at the sky. Yi Wushuang said coldly, "Brother, here's the question. How did this saber appear on the spiritual medicine mountain?" That means that there's something wrong with the spiritual medicine mountain. Yi Chen's eyes flickered a few times. Subsequently, he summoned Yao Huayuan and asked directly while pointing at the Master Destruction Saber, "Where did you guys get this saber?" According to the ancestral scripture, it's the item that the second founding ancestor of the spiritual medicine mountain had, Yao Huayuan said weakly. Second founding ancestor? Yi Chen frowned. Does your so-called second-generation founding ancestor know saber techniques? Could it be that the old man in the illusion was him? He could not help but guess. No. However, Yao Huayuan shook his head and said with certainty, "The second-generation founding ancestor doesn't know any saber techniques. He doesn't even know how to cultivate, much less alchemy." Yi Chen's interest was piqued. "I'm curious. How did he become the master of the spiritual medicine mountain if he doesn't know anything?" Even Yi Wushuang could not help but look at Yao Huayuan. Yao Huayuan paused and said, It's said that the second-generation founding ancestor had a younger brother who used saber techniques. He was extremely talented, and the second-generation founding ancestor became the master of the spiritual medicine mountain because of him. However, that man rebelled. Nobody knows what happened to him, but he killed the second-generation founding ancestor, his parents, and his wife. Yao Huayuan looked rather unnatural as he spoke to this point. The incident was related to the spiritual medicine mountain's secret. Only the master of each generation had the right to know about it. Yi Chen said, "What happened then?" Yao Huayuan said slowly, "It caused a huge commotion back then. The Martial Alliance issued a kill order to hunt him down, but he killed all of them. Later on, the chief of the Martial Alliance fought him personally, but he still killed him with a swing of his saber. The entire martial Dao world was in a panic back then. Nobody was his match. He went missing later on. Some said that he was killed by a hidden expert, while some said that they saw him being killed by lightning with their own eyes. Some said that he became a monk." Yi Chen asked him to leave upon hearing that. Yi Chen asked him to leave after seeing that he really did not know anything else. He then looked at Yi Wushuang and said, "Clearly, this person disappeared because of Xiang Tian. So, is he dead?" Yi Wushuang asked. "It's hard to say." Yi Chen shook his head lightly and said, "This man drew his saber at the sky, so he'll be punished by heaven. Theoretically, he'll definitely die. However, his saber intent is left behind. He even has a consciousness, so he doesn't look like he's dead." "Brother, if this man isn't dead, and you meet him in the future," Yi Wushuang said while raising his brows slightly. Yi Chen understood what he meant. That man was from the spiritual medicine mountain, no matter what. Now that he had occupied the spiritual medicine mountain, he was on the opposite side of him. Moreover, he had broken his saber intent earlier, so there was no doubt that they were mortal enemies. Yi Chen chuckled softly as he thought to this point. "It doesn't matter even if he's not dead. His saber can't kill me, but my sword can. I hope he's not dead. If that's the case, I can compete with him to see if his saber or my sword is more powerful." Yi Wushuang's battle intent was high. As he was speaking, the Patriarch of Hell's voice came into Yi Chen's head through voice transmission. "Master, there's a big discovery. Come here now." The Patriarch sounded rather excited. "Let's go and take a look," Yi Chen said to Yi Wushuang and put the Master Destruction saber away. He then ran out as the wind blew under his feet. "Mommy, come and catch up to me." "Meng Meng, slow down. You can't catch up to me." On a barren slope at the back of the spiritual medicine mountain, Meng Meng was playing hide-and-seek with Su Yuhan among the oil flowers on the mountain. Her bell-like laughter spread far and wide. A black puppy was lying before a stone wall at the moment. Its eyes were filled with excitement as it looked at the stone wall. If one were to take a closer look, they would notice that there was a faint hurricane flashing on the stone wall. There was a faint tunnel in the hurricane. A spatial tear. Never had he thought that there would be a spatial tear in a **TTY place like the spiritual medicine mountain. The Patriarch of Hell was cramping from laughing. "Since there's a spatial tear, doesn't that mean that I can return to the cultivation world through the tear?" The Patriarch was laughing and crying at the same time. "God has mercy on me. I've had enough of this stupid place. I'm going back to look for Sister Fairy. We'll talk through the night. I don't want to be ordered around like a dog anymore. Little Yezi, I clearly remember everything you've done to me, your ancestor, for that matter. Not only did you give me such an awful name like Cutie, but you even fed me dog food. You even stopped me from doing a great job." The Patriarch of Hell could not stop rolling his eyes. He secretly thought about how he should persuade Yi Chen to return to the cultivation world through the spatial tear with him. "That's right. When I return to the cultivation world, I'll find a sect of female cultivators and rape up to 1,000 female cultivators. After I recover my cultivation base, I'll beat Xiao Yezi until he calls me daddy. However, I must bring a few bags of dog food with me before I leave. At that moment, two figures ran over quickly. They were Yi Chen and Yi Wushuang. Yi Chen looked at the stone wall next to him by instinct. His expression froze immediately. A spatial tear? That's right. The Patriarch of Hell replied immediately. He then crossed his legs and stood like a human. He crossed his front paws before his chest and looked at Yi Chen arrogantly while swinging his legs. Xiao Yezi, your opportunity is here. Come back to the cultivation world with me. I'll forgive you for what you've done to me before. However, the prerequisite is that you have to remove the master-servant contract between me and your daughter. Then, kneel and beg me to take you in as my follower. Chapter 308. Yi Chen saw the Patriarch of Hell strolling with his arms on his waist while looking at him arrogantly. Yi Chen was stunned. Xiao Yezi, what are you waiting for? The Patriarch of Hell was pissed. Kneel before me now. You must know that I was a tribulation almighty in the past. I'll protect you when you return to the cultivation world with me. Are you rebelling? The corner of Yi Chen's lips twitched slightly. This dog has become arrogant recently. How dare he yell at me? That's right, I'm rebelling. The Patriarch of Hell wagged his tail and said hatefully, To tell you the truth, I've had enough of you. I'm a tribulation old monster, not a dog. How dare you feed me dog food? Forget it, the problem is that it's expired dog food. Boring. Yi Chen shook his head lightly and walked to the stone wall. The Patriarch of Hell was enraged. The old ancestor of the netherworld was furious. Little Yezi, do you understand dog language? Bah, it's human language. Yi Chen ignored him and lifted his eyes to look at the spatial tear inside. He could not help but frown. Why is there a spatial tear here? Damn it, I am going to kill you. The Patriarch of Hell charged at Yi Chen while clenching his teeth. However, Yi Chen's cold gaze and the great thunder sword in Wushuang's hand responded. The elder ancestor shuddered and immediately became terrified. Master, I was wrong. That was what he said. But in its heart, it was furious. Xiao Yezi, just you wait. When I return to the cultivation world and recover my tribulation cultivation base, I'll definitely teach you a lesson. What did you do wrong? Yi Chen walked toward him step by step. Oh no, this devil is angry. The Patriarch's heart skipped a beat. He said while smiling immediately, Cutie, I shouldn't have said those things to you, Master. I was actually joking with you. Roar! Master, be gentle, be gentle. A moment later, the Patriarch was sent flying with a slap. The little girl, who was playing in the bushes, lifted her head to look at the sky. She saw a dog flapping its paws in the air. Eventually, it hit the ground hard. Mommy, Cutie flew. The little girl screamed. Yi Chen said with a forced smile after the Patriarch ran back, Are you trying to return to the cultivation world through this spatial rift? I don't dare. The Patriarch immediately shook his head like a rattledrum. Master, you are tall, mighty, brave, extraordinary, dignified, unparalleled, talented, loved by everyone. How could but face bear to leave you? Hee. Yi Chen smiled coldly and said, Just say it if you want to go back. But let me ask you, can you resist the Void Rift? Patriarch Yellow Spring was stunned. That seems to be the case. The Patriarch was attached to a dog nearby. If he really entered the void crack, he would probably turn into ashes in an instant. Yi Chen said again, How do you know that the cultivation world is at the end of the spatial tear? Even if you can return to the cultivation world, how can you be sure that you can return to the original cultivation world? What will you do if you transmigrate to a lower plane than Earth? Patriarch Yellow Spring was completely dumbfounded. Yi Chen said again, Also, do you have an instant fixing compass? The so-called instant fixing compass was a magic tool that could locate coordinates and guide directions. It was not easy to refine one. Plop! The Patriarch Yellow Spring fell onto the ground as if he had lost his parent. He was heartbroken. Master, you're right. I was wrong. Don't worry, I'll definitely stay by your side. How did you find this spatial tear? Yi Chen turned around and asked while looking at the stone wall. The patriarch sobbed and said, When I came out earlier, I suddenly felt the need to pee, so I wanted to pee here. I found a faint formation wave on the stone wall. I found it after I dispelled it. He was a tribulation almighty in his past life after all. Naturally, he was skilled in formations. Now that he had a mastery stage spirit assembly cultivation base, it was a piece of cake for him to dispel an illusory formation. But why is there a spatial tear here? It seems like it's been here for a long time. Someone even set up an illusory formation to hide it. Yi Chen frowned slightly. The patriarch Yellow Spring said by instinct, Master, do you think it's possible that someone from the cultivation world transmigrated to this world by accident and broke the space here? Yi Chen and Yi Wushuang's expressions froze when they heard that. The first thing that came to their minds was that someone from the immortal world had come. Moreover, it was someone sent by Yi Chen's traitorous disciple. However, Yi Chen subsequently shook his head and said while smiling, That's impossible. Since even you can break this formation, the person's cultivation base naturally can't be that high. His formation cultivation base isn't high either. In that case, it's impossible for him to survive in the spatial tear. The patriarch Yellow Spring thought about it and agreed with him. Brother, in my opinion, since this spatial tear appeared in the spiritual medicine mountain, it must be related to the spiritual medicine mountain, Yi Wushuang said. Yi Chen could not help but squint. The spiritual medicine mountain. There were so many secrets here. First, there was the Master Destruction Saber that contained saber intent. Now, there was this spatial tear that someone had hidden. Since that's the case, that old man, Yao Huayuan, must know about it. Master, just you wait. I'll get Cutie for you to interrogate him right away. The patriarch Yellow Spring expressed his loyalty immediately. No need. Yi Chen stopped him. Yao Huayuan doesn't have much time left. With your attitude, he'll be scared to death. I'll ask him myself later, but I don't think he knows anything. He could not help but turn around to look at the spatial tear on the stone wall as he spoke to this point. Before that, we must seal this spatial tear. He had to seal it. Indeed, there were many strange things in the sky. As soon as they entered this world through the tear, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. Subsequently, Yi Chen got Yi Wushuang to get some refining materials from Yao Huayuan. He refined 2 sets of formations. One was to seal the spatial tear, while the other was a high-level illusion formation. The purpose of that was to prevent outsiders from discovering it. After he was done, he nodded in satisfaction. At that moment, Meng Meng ran over while staggering. She leaped into Yi Chen's embrace and said, Daddy, let's play hide-and-seek, okay? Don't you have Mommy to play with you? Yi Chen squatted down and touched the flower bud on her head. He then looked at Su Yuhan, who was far away. Mommy's too dumb. I can't even find Meng Meng, the little girl said in disdain. Su Yuhan's face flushed upon hearing that. She walked over and glared at her angrily. Who are you calling dumb? Mommy's not dumb. She's just not smart enough, the little girl said in all seriousness. Su Yuhan vented her anger on Yi Chen. Look at what kind of daughter you've raised. She's starting to criticize me, her mother. Yi Chen was speechless. Just when he was going to speak, his phone rang. He picked it up and realized that it was a number from the northeast. He picked it up after some hesitation. Before he could speak, a voice that sounded like it was about to cry came from the phone. Old Yi, help. Who are you? Yi Chen failed to react at that moment. It's me, Yang Tian. F***CKU. You've screwed me over. Chapter 309. After the battle between Yi Chen and Northern Devil Jiang in Jiangbei back then, Yang Tian wanted to walk on Yi Chen's path. However, Yi Chen thought that Yang Tian was not mature enough back then. He felt that bringing him to the cultivation path would harm him instead. However, he could not reject Yang Tian, so he came up with a problem. Within 3 months, Yang Tian had to walk from Jiangbei to Changbai Mountain in the northeast and return. During that period, Yang Tian could not spend money to take a car or a plane. It was impossible for a regular person to complete the journey within 3 months. However, Yang Tian agreed to it anyway. Looking at it now, it had been 2 months since he left. If not for the phone call, Yi Chen would not have recalled it at that moment. He was stunned when he heard that it was Yang Tian on the phone. Yi Chen was stunned. He said in between tears and laughter, "Oh, it's you. What happened? Where are you now?" "I'm at Gourd Island now, but I'm dying." Yi Chen looked serious upon hearing that. Yi Chen's expression turned serious. He looked at Su Yuhan and the rest before him and asked, "What exactly happened? Tell me slowly. I can't tell you everything in a short time. I offended the Cumaxian. He did something to my body and said that he'll kill me within 7 days." There was fear in Yang Tian's voice. What happened to him in the past 2 months was enough to write a book called Journey to the West, the first edition. Yi Chen said in his deep voice, "Where exactly are you now? Also, whose phone did you use to call me?" "I'm at a friend's house. My phone belongs to her too." Yang Tian was on the verge of tears as he said, "Old Yi, you have to save me. If you hadn't instigated me to come all the way to the northeast, I wouldn't have provoked Chuma Xian. Also, Lil, how is your godson? You can't, calm down." Yi Chen took a deep breath in and comforted him. "Send me your exact location. I'll be there right away. Remember to keep in touch with me." Yang Tian hung up the phone after telling him the location. "What happened?" Su Yuhan could not help but ask. Yi Chen looked at her and sighed softly. "You know Yang Tian, don't you?" Su Yuhan nodded lightly and said while smiling, "I know. Wasn't he the one who spread the news when we were dating in university? I remember you guys were close back then." Yi Chen told her about what happened to Yang Tian earlier. He then said, "Yang Tian has offended a Chuma immortal in Liao province. Judging from his tone, I'm afraid it's going to be a big problem, so I can't just ignore it." And then, Su Yuhan nodded and said considerately, "I know. It's fine. Go ahead. I'll bring Meng Meng back to Tianan first. I'll wait for you at home." "Yuhan, I'm sorry." Yi Chen could not help but grab her little hands. He said rather guiltily, "I promised you that I'd marry you in Tianan after I'm done with the Ghost Rider sect. I kept putting it off." "Fool." She was not used to his sudden flirting. She said angrily, "It doesn't matter if we do it sooner or later. Go save Yang Tian first. Nothing must happen to him." "Daddy, I want to go with you," Meng Meng said in a clingy manner while hugging Yi Chen's neck. "Meng Meng, be good. You can't go." Su Yuhan said with a straight face, "I'm going to save your uncle Yang Tian, not to go sightseeing." "Are you going to see Grandpa and Grandma with me? Don't you miss Grandpa and Grandma? Don't you want to be with me?" The little girl was a little conflicted to hear that. "But I really want to be with Daddy." Yi Chen could not help but laugh out loud. He kissed her little cheeks and said, "Listen to me. I won't bring you with me this time. Go home with me and wait for me at home. I'll bring you lots of delicious food." The little girl's eyes lit up as soon as she heard about food. She was so happy that she revealed her little canine teeth. "Sure, Daddy. Remember what you said. You'll bring me lots of delicious food." "Brother, I'll go with you," Yi Wushuang said. "No need." Yi Chen shook his head. "Wushuang, go back to Tianan with your sister-in-law this time. Remember, your mission is to protect your sister-in-law and niece." Yi Wushuang hesitated to speak, but he eventually agreed to it. They returned to their residence. Yi Chen took out his phone and called Old Chen while Su Yuhan was carrying Meng Meng to dinner. "Yo, little Yi, this is your first time calling me." Old Chen was rather surprised. Yi Chen went straight to the point. "Old Chen, I wonder if you know anything about the northeastern Chuma immortals? There was a moment of silence on the other end of the phone. Subsequently, Old Chen's hoarse voice came. "Why are you asking about that all of a sudden? A friend of mine offended the Chuma immortals," Yi Chen said. Old Chen hesitated and said, "Forget it. I know your character. It's not realistic to ask you to let it go. I can't explain it over the phone. I'll get someone to compile some information and send it to your email later." "Sure, thanks." Yi Chen hung up the phone. Soon, he received an email. He opened it and saw that it was information about the Chuma immortals. As the name suggested, Chuma immortals were immortals who chased horses. Immortals were usually animals with a certain level of cultivation. Such a profession mainly came from the northeast. Together with Maoshan in the south, they were called Mao in the south and Ma in the north. Due to the dense forests in the northeast, there were many old forests. Naturally, there would be many beings with intelligence in the deep forest. Meanwhile, immortals were mostly from the five immortals, namely Hu, Huang, Bai, Willow, and Hui. Among them, Hu was a fox, Huang was a weasel, Bai was a hedgehog, Lu was a snake, and Hui was a rat. However, those who wanted to go against nature would always be envied by the heavens, especially animals. They would have to go through many trials on their cultivation journey, such as the boy barrier, the horse barrier, and so on. After these beings cultivated to a certain level, they would enter the world to do good deeds to accumulate merit or to accelerate their cultivation speed to avoid the heavenly tribulation. For example, they would treat illnesses, communicate with yin and yang, help people ask for rice, exorcise evil spirits, and so on. The way they entered the world to do good deeds was called Chuma. In the north, it was called carrying a pole and holding the incense stick. In the south, it was called coming out of the shell, sitting down, and putting down the table. As these immortals could not transform into humans, they would usually choose someone to be their incense boy. That was why these incense boys were called Chuma disciples. After the Chuma disciples were done, the immortals would possess their bodies and use their bodies to do good deeds. There were 4 major immortal clans. Among the clans, the Golden Flower Cult Master, the Silver Flower Cult Master, the Tongtian Cult Master, Great-Grandmother Hu San, and Great-Grandfather Hu San were the most famous. They were responsible for leading all the Chuma immortals in the world. At this point, Yi Chen could not help but frown. Theoretically, the Chuma immortals were people who were active in doing good deed. Why did Yang Tian offend them? Moreover, the so-called immortal was going to kill him within 7 days? Chapter 310. After studying the Cumaxian's information, Yi Chen could not figure it out. Yi Chen could not figure it out no matter how hard he thought about it. He tried calling Yang Tian directly, but nobody picked up. His heart could not help but sink. At that moment, Old Chen called and asked directly, "Little Yi, are you sure you're going to the northeast?" "That's right," Yi Chen said. He had to go to the northeast. Yang Tian was his brother, so he could not stand aside. Old Chen said while smiling, "Coincidentally, the country has a geographical expedition team that's going too. Why don't you guys go together?" "An expedition team?" Yi Chen frowned. "Old Chen, I have something important to attend to in the northeast this time. I'm afraid I can't bring anyone." "Don't reject it just yet," Old Chen said. "There's a northeasterner in the expedition team. He's proficient in the local shaman language, and the Cumaxian is a continuation of the shaman religion. It might be helpful to you if you bring him along." "Sure, get them to wait for me. I'll return to Beijing immediately," Yi Chen agreed after thinking about it for a while. That afternoon, Yi Chen left the spiritual medicine mountain with Su Yuhan, his daughter, and Yi Wushuang. However, before he left, he fixed the spiritual medicine mountain's protective formation and brought the giant medicine man with him. They headed straight to the provincial city in the off-road vehicle. This time, Su Yuhan sat in the passenger seat while carrying Meng Meng. She looked at the medicine man in the bamboo hat behind her in slight fear and asked in confusion, "Yi Chen, why did you bring this big guy along?" She had seen how powerful the medicine man was before. Moreover, the medicine man was tall, so she dared not sit next to him by instinct. This is a puppet. It's very powerful. It's perfect as a fighter, Yi Chen said while smiling while driving. The medicine man had the cultivation base of a martial Dao master. Although he had no consciousness, it did not affect his combat strength at all. He did not have human emotions and desires. Yi Chen had almost crippled him earlier. Later on, he repaired him on the spiritual medicine mountain and refined him again. Now, he was completely obedient to him. Initially, he planned to leave the medicine man with Su Yuhan as her bodyguard. However, judging from Su Yuhan's reaction, she probably did not like him, so he kept him. Su Yuhan nodded and said while pursing her red lips, "So, how long will it take for you to come back from the northeast?" 7 or 8 days. Yi Chen chuckled softly. "Don't worry. I'll rush back as soon as I'm done with Yang Tian. You can wash up and wait for me at home." "Go to hell, you're not serious at all." Su Yuhan blushed and slapped him angrily. Yi Chen's driving speed was very fast. It only took him about 3 hours to get from Longnan to Guangzhou's provincial capital. He bought plane tickets for Su Yuhan, her daughter, and Yi Wushuang personally. Yi Chen called out to Su Yuhan before they parted. He opened his arms and said shamelessly, "Your husband, I will be away for a few days. Can't you give me something to remember before we part?" How could Su Yuhan not understand what he meant? She blushed and walked over to kiss Yi Chen's cheek after some hesitation. She said while clenching her teeth, "Are you happy now, you be *****? Yes, I'm very satisfied. Don't worry, I definitely won't wipe it off," Yi Chen said with a smile as he touched the lipstick mark on his face. "Daddy, I want a kiss too." Meng Meng ran over and kissed Yi Chen's cheek too. Yi Wushuang, who was far away, looked rather unnatural as he mumbled, "Is this dog food?" After sending them on the plane, Yi Chen put the jeep away into his storage ring, while no one was paying attention. He rode on a sword gleam and headed to Beijing with the medicine man at the same time. Beijing, at the entrance of the Yenshan Geographical Survey Agency. An SUV was parked by the roadside. There was a pretty lady with a cold aura sitting in the passenger seat. She wore a pair of black-framed glasses and was approximately 27 or 28 years old. The lady was Di Jing. She graduated from the University of London with a double doctorate in geography, human, and nature. She was currently a professor at a famous geographical survey agency in the country. However, impatience was written all over her face at the moment. Meanwhile, there was an old man in hiking attire sitting next to her. The old man had white hair on his temples, but he looked energetic. At that moment, a tall, young man in black martial arts attire walked out of the agency. He asked after checking the time, "Di Jing, is that person not here yet?" "No." Di Jing frowned slightly. The tall, young man frowned upon hearing that. The tall young man frowned, feeling rather upset. Subsequently, he looked at the old man in hiking attire next to him. "Old Shin, is the person you mentioned coming or not? It's already 5 p.m. Don't delay our departure. Dai Wei, let's wait a little longer." The old man in hiking attire named Old Shin took a puff of his pipe and chuckled. "We still have to wait? It's going to be dark soon." Dai Wei was getting more and more annoyed. What exactly is the higher-ups thinking? Are they sending someone here at the last minute to drag us down? Alright, Dai Wei, stop complaining. There's nothing Old Shin can do since such a person is here all of a sudden, Di Jing said rather irritably. They were going to Gourd Island's Thunder Valley for an inspection because there was an unsolved mystery in the valley. It was said that thunder would rumble in the valley when the weather was calm. Moreover, when it rained, the concave pebbles on the Thunder Valley's ground would form the water curtain cave wonder. They had been preparing for that for a few months. Just when they were about to depart, the higher-ups suddenly told them that someone was going to Gourd Island too. They even got them to welcome him. The annoyance in her grew as she thought to this point. Dai Wei looked at Di Jing's voluptuous body with a burning desire. He explained while smiling, Di Jing, I'm not complaining. I'm just a little annoyed. Isn't he dragging us down by bringing a burden? Old Shen, who had been smoking, paused and said, That Mr. Yi isn't a burden. I heard from the higher-ups that he's quite capable. They even asked us to listen to his advice along the way. You're pretty capable? Don't tell me that he's also an experienced geography expert? Di Jing looked at Old Shen by instinct. She could accept it if that was the case. Old Shen shook his head. I don't think so. I heard that this Mr. Yi is very young. He looks like he's in his 30s. Pfft. Dai Wei scoffed before he was done speaking. How dare he say that he's capable when he's not even 30? Let's not talk about Di Jing and I. Among everyone here, Old Shen is the most experienced and knowledgeable. Why should he listen to that brat? There was something that he did not say. He would be the first to be upset. Di Jing shook her head lightly. She was disappointed. It seemed like it was another person with connections who came out of nowhere. He must be following them to gain experience. At that moment, a calm voice came. I'm sorry to have kept everyone waiting. Chapter 3:11. I'm sorry to have kept you guys waiting. Di Jing, Dai Wei, and the rest looked over by instinct. Di Jing, Dai Wei, and the rest subconsciously looked over and saw a skinny young man walking over. The young man's facial features were ordinary, and his clothes were ordinary. Meanwhile, there was a man who was over 1.8 meters tall following behind him. However, they could not see his face because he was wearing a bamboo hat. At that moment, Di Jing and Dai Wei were stunned. Is he the one we're waiting for? Old Shen got out of the car immediately and greeted him while smiling. May I know if you're Mr. Yi? Yi Chen nodded and smiled apologetically. You must be Old Shen. I'm sorry. I ran into something on the way here, so I was delayed. Don't worry about it. Old Shen waved and led Yi Chen over in a friendly manner. He pointed at Di Jing and Dai Wei and introduced, Mr. Yi, let me introduce you. This is the beauty of our team, Di Jing. She's also an expert. Old Shen even joked as he spoke to this point. Don't underestimate her just because she's a girl. Di Jing has a double doctorate. Hi, I'm Di Jing. Di Jing nodded calmly. However, the disappointment inside of her was growing. Before this, she thought Yi Chen was some rich kid who was here to gain experience. However, now that they had met, she felt that Yi Chen did not look like a rich kid at all. He was as ordinary as he could be. Sigh. What exactly are the higher-ups thinking? She sighed to herself. Yi Chen smiled lightly. Yi Chen. Mr. Yi, this is Dai Wei. He's currently one of the members of our investigation team. He's also the security consultant. Old Shen proceeded to introduce. Dai Wei used to be a retired soldier. He has great skills, but he's a little arrogant. Compared to Di Jing's politeness, Dai Wei was much colder. He merely nodded at Yi Chen as a greeting. Subsequently, he looked at the medicine man standing next to Yi Chen and frowned. Who's this? He's my bodyguard. You guys can call him Tower. Yi Chen gave a simple introduction. Yi Chen gave it a simple introduction. After fixing the giant, he gave it a new name. Dai Wei had disdain in his eyes. He said, Mr. Yi, we're going on an investigation, not a vacation. Don't you think it's inappropriate for you to do that? Di Jing furrowed her brows. Old Shen changed the topic immediately. Xiaodai Xiaodi, since everyone's here, let's depart. He got into the back seat of the jeep after saying that. Yi Chen led Iron Tower to the back seat as well. Iron Tower was just tall enough to sit down. Fortunately, Yi Chen had shrunk Iron Tower's body earlier. Dai Wei sat in the driver's seat and drove on the highway after he started the engine. Perhaps it was a little dull in the car. Old Shen took the initiative to ask, May I know why are you going to Haludio, Mr. Yi? To meet a friend. Yi Chen smiled. In the end, he did not tell them about Yang Tian offending a Chuma immortal. He did not want to scare them. Hearing those words, Old Shin was slightly stunned. Di Jing, who was sitting in the front passenger seat, shook her head. You're just going to meet a friend. You can't take the high-speed rail or even a plane, but you insist on traveling with us and make us wait for so long. Dai Wei pricked up his ears as he drove. He laughed coldly and said, Are you treating our car as a free ride? Yi Chen smiled and said nothing. Sensing that the atmosphere was a little depressing, Old Shin mediated immediately. It's all right. We've been bored along the way. It's good to have someone to talk to. Yi Chen said while smiling, Oh yeah, Old Shin, does anyone in your team know how to speak shaman? As soon as he said that, Di Jing, who was sitting in the passenger seat, suddenly turned around and looked at him. She seemed a little surprised. Why do you ask? I was just asking, Yi Chen said. Di Jing looked at him deeply and said, Mr. Yi, if there's no need, I advise you not to understand these things. Why? Yi Chen was curious. Di Jing took a deep breath and said, Shaman is the language of shamanism, and shaman is the pronunciation in the Tungus language. When translated into Chinese, it means shaman. I've heard of it too. Old Shin nodded and took over the topic. It's said that shamanism originated from the primitive society. It's a folk belief that came from people's worship of nature and all living things. Rumor has it that they have the ability to control weather, language, dream interpretation, astrology, and even go to heaven and hell. That's right. Di Jing said with a serious expression. The godly dancing in some areas now comes from shamanism. This organization is strange. They can perform witchcraft to kill you as soon as they know your name and age. And then? Yi Chen said calmly. Di Jing said, Until now, shamanism still exists in many places. They're mainly in the northeast. That's why I advise you not to offend them when you get there. Otherwise, you'll lose your life. Yi Chen gave a short response, not really bothered. Those beings could not threaten him at all. Di Jing was secretly annoyed to see that he was not surprised at all. She scoffed and subsequently turned her head away. The reason why she told Yi Chen so much was that her ancestors were from the shaman religion. Therefore, she knew how terrifying the shaman religion was. It's up to you whether you believe it or not. Don't blame me if something happens. Dai Wei said without even turning his head. Di Jing, since this Mr. Yi doesn't believe in superstition, it's useless no matter what we say. It's fine as long as he doesn't drag us into it. Mr. Yi, what Di Jing said makes sense. There are many mysterious powers that we don't understand in this world. Just because we don't know about them doesn't mean that they don't exist, Old Shin advised. Yi Chen secretly found it funny. He glanced at him and said, It seems like Old Shin knows a little about them? Could mysterious powers be more mysterious than cultivation? Yes. Old Shin sighed softly. Our magnificent China has been passed down for thousands of years. I wonder if there are many things that science can't explain. For example, Laozi rode a green ox out of Hanggu Pass, and purple energy swept across 300 miles. He ascended after leaving half of the Tao Te Ching. That's just a legend, Yi Chen said while smiling. Even as a cultivator, he could not confirm if there was a mythical civilization in China, such as the Three Pure Ones, the Jade Emperor and Queen Mother. Then, how do you explain the Tao Te Ching and the Book of Changes that King Wen left behind? These two books are just too mysterious. Old Shin shook his head and proceeded to say, Let's not talk about the distant ones. Let's talk about the recent ones. For example, the Yangtze River incident in 1954? The Chengdu zombie incident in 1995? The Inko falling dragon incident in 1934 and the rumor of 30 degrees north latitude? 30 degrees north latitude? Yi Chen was stunned. He had heard about the few incidents that happened earlier, especially the Chengdu zombie incident. It had spread throughout the entire southwest region and covered a couple of provinces. Yi Chen had just started elementary school back then. After the incident happened, he stayed at home and dared not go to school. He was afraid that the zombies would suck his blood. However, it was his first time hearing about 30 degrees north latitude. Chapter 312. He looked into Yi Chen's eyes. Old Shin took a deep breath and said slowly, 30 degrees north latitude is a mysterious and strange line of latitude. This area has always been a disaster area for tsunamis, earthquakes, and volcanoes. He paused as he spoke to this point and proceeded. What's more strange is that the Bermuda Triangle that's known as the Death Triangle, the Egyptian pyramids, the world's highest peak, Mount Everest, the Sphinx, the Yangtze River, the Nile River, and the Mississippi River are all located on this line of latitude precisely. Di Jing could not help but interrupt upon hearing that. Di Jing couldn't help but interject, I've read an explanation in a book. It said that the Egyptian pyramids were built by aliens, and this latitude line is the door to another dimension. That's why there are so many wonders. You can't believe everything that the book says, but you have to believe it too. Old Shin shook his head lightly and said, Anyway, there are many things waiting for us to discover and uncover. It's also the mission of our geographical investigation team. However, I don't think we'll be able to see it in our generation. Old Shin, have you ever thought that you'll find out that the world you live in is so small one day? Yi Chen suddenly said, For example, humans can unlock more potential, move mountains and fill seas. They can even pursue immortality. You're getting more and more ridiculous. Dai Wei scoffed. If humans can really move mountains, wouldn't the billions of people in the world be in chaos? Besides, if everyone is immortal, will the earth still be able to bear it? Old Shun is talking to you about something that actually exists, but you're talking about this. Di Jing shook her head. Yi Chen smiled calmly and did not explain. Old Shin, on the other hand, said while seeming to be in deep thought, What Mr. Yi said is possible, but it's too far away. I've heard rumors about Kunlun before. It's said that Kunlun is the Queen Mother of the West's palace. Many mysterious things have happened in recent years. For example, someone saw a man in flames flying out of the forest with his own eyes. Also, a Tibetan bell goat made a bunch of lions surrender, and a female monkey gave birth to a baby boy who could talk. Old Shin, someone's confused, and so are you, Dai Wei said while pointing at the mulberry. The legend of Kunlun is just a legend after all. The reason why there are so many rumors is purely because of the ignorance of the local people. Coupled with the media hype, it's never been proven. Maybe I'm really confused. Old Shin laughed out loud and did not continue the topic. Yi Chen's expression changed slightly. He was interested in Kunlun. When he had returned to Earth, he had landed on the ancient altar of Mount Tai. In other words, it was the ancient altar that had led him to this realm. Mount Tai was known as the head of the 5 sacred mountains. For thousands of years, it had left behind too many legends. Confucius climbed Mount Tai and conquered the world. Secondly, the emperors of all dynasties had a long-cherished wish, which was to hold a ceremony on Mount Tai. For example, the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. Naturally, that ancient sacrificial altar had been passed down from ancient times. Since Mount Tai was so mysterious, Kunlun, which was the #1 sacred mountain in China, would naturally not be inferior. As he was thinking about this, the sky gradually darkened, and the car entered a small town. Dai Wei parked the car by the roadside and said after turning his head, Old Shin, it's getting dark. Moreover, the car is running out of gas. Why don't we spend the night here and continue our journey tomorrow? But is there a hotel here? Di Jing furrowed her brows and looked around. After all, it was just a small town. She didn't think it was safe. As if sensing her worry, Dai Wei smiled confidently. Don't worry. Nothing will happen. Even if something does happen, you still have me, right? He glanced at Yi Chen and Iron Tower Riley as he spoke to this point. He said in a strange tone, Moreover, there's Mr. Yi and his bodyguard. All right then, Shao Dai. You've been driving for a few hours. You can rest for a night. Old Shin nodded and finally made up his mind. After that, the few of them continued to look for a few more hotels, only to find that they were all full. Finally, they found a small hotel near the outskirts of the city. There seemed to be a funeral in front of the house. There was a black and white photo hanging in the room on the first floor. The photo was of a pretty woman. Judging from her appearance, she was less than 30 years old when she died. The hotel owner was a middle-aged man with a birthmark on his face and a mouth full of yellow teeth. He looked at Yi Chen and the rest after Dai Wei told him the purpose of their visit. He said after some hesitation, "We can let you guys stay here, but we only have 3 rooms left." As soon as he said that, Di Jing's expression changed instantly. There were a total of 5 of them, including a single lady like her. How could 3 rooms be enough for them? The hotel owner left a sentence for them to think about it and then left. "It's simple." Dai Wei smiled and said, "I'll stay in 1 room, Di Jing will stay in 1 room, and Old Shin will stay in 1 room. As for Brother Yi and your bodyguard, you can sleep in my SUV if you don't mind." Di Jing thought that the suggestion was great, but she still thought it was inappropriate, so she did not say anything at the moment. Yi Chen took a good look at the small hotel. Just when he was going to speak, Old Shin, who was standing aside, said, "How about this? Xiao Dai and Xiao Dai will stay in 1 room, and Mr. Yi and I will stay in 1 room. I'll sleep on the floor." Just when Dai Wei was going to agree to it after hearing what Old Shin said, Yi Chen suddenly said, "Are you guys sure you guys want to stay in this small hotel? If you trust me, it's best that you guys don't stay here. I'll drive, and we'll continue to the north." "What do you mean?" Dai Wei thought he was complaining about the hotel, so he said with a grim expression, "It's not like you didn't see that. We've searched the entire town, but this is the only hotel we've found." "Dai Wei, I think Mr. Yi is right too. Why don't we continue driving? We'll be fine when we arrive at the county town." Surprisingly, Di Jing was on Yi Chen's side. She could not help but look at the morning hall as she spoke. Her expression was rather grim. "Moreover, there's a funeral going on here. So, that's what you guys are afraid of?" Dai Wei scoffed. "Isn't it just dead people? What's there to be afraid of? When I was a soldier, I've seen countless dead people. I can understand why a girl like Di Jing is afraid, but Mr. Yi, you 2 men are also afraid. Aren't you too timid?" Yi Chen frowned. "All right, Mr. Yi, Xiao Dai, let's just stay here for the night. We'll depart in the morning," Old Shin decided in a straightforward manner. Subsequently, they found the hotel owner. After paying for the room and asking for some hot water, they took the hotel owner's key and went to the 2nd floor of the hotel. There were not many rooms on the 2nd floor. There were approximately 10 of them. As soon as they arrived at the corridor, they saw an old lady squatting at the door of a room by the window at the end of the corridor. There was a metal basin before the old lady. She could not stop throwing paper money into it, filling the corridor with smoke. Dai Wei's expression changed because their room happened to be the 3 rooms before the old lady. He charged over without saying anything and shouted fiercely, "Who are you? Who told you to burn paper money here?" The old woman was startled by him. She fell to the ground and stammered, "I'm burning joss paper for my granddaughter. My granddaughter died in this room." Chapter 313. The old woman's words caused everyone to be stunned. Dai Wei gulped by instinct and said, "What did you say? Your granddaughter died in this room?" "Yes, yes," the old lady cried while wiping her tears. "My granddaughter hanged herself in this room. I heard that people who commit suicide can't be reincarnated. That's why I wanted to burn more money for my granddaughter so that she can build some connections." Hanged herself. Di Jing's face turned pale when she heard that. She leaned toward Yi Chen by instinct and was a little scared when she looked at the room that was closest to the side. Dai Wei was enraged when he saw what she was doing. He kicked the metal basin on the ground and cursed, "Get lost! Get lost now! I'll beat you to death if you don't." The old woman was probably frightened by him. She cleaned up the ashes on the ground, picked up the iron basin, and left while trembling. Damn it, I can't believe I've come across this in a hotel. I'm so unlucky, Dai Wei said while grumbling. Di Jing hesitated and could not help but say, Dai Wei, why don't we not stay here? Let's go back to the car and sleep. Although she was highly educated, she was still a girl after all. That was what girls were most afraid of. Dai Wei thought to himself. Dai Wei thought to himself and agreed with what she said. However, he peeped at Yi Chen, who was standing behind Di Jing by instinct. Noticing that he was pretending to be calm, he said firmly, Don't worry, I've never been afraid of that. Old Shen. Di Jing looked at Old Shen. Old Shen fell into deep thought and said while smiling, Shao Dai, you're right. It's no big deal. That old lady just burned some paper money. Moreover, it's a little cold here at night. We might catch a cold if we sleep in the car. As the leader of the investigation team, he had to be responsible for everyone's safety. Moreover, he had lived for most of his life and had never seen anything mysterious. He would not be scared by what happened earlier. Di Jing could only nod unwillingly, seeing that Old Shen insisted. Subsequently, she stretched her arm and pushed the door open. She entered the room on the far left directly. The 3 rooms were connected, and their numbers were 443,444,445. Meanwhile, Di Jing entered room 443. Old Shen looked at Yi Chen and said, Mr. Yi, which room are we sleeping in? It doesn't matter. Yi Chen shrugged. Dai Wei was elated. He pointed at room 444, where the old lady's granddaughter had been hanged. Since it doesn't matter, you can sleep in this room. Yi Chen looked at him wryly and said, Didn't you just say that you're not afraid of that? Who said I'm scared? Dai Wei felt guilty when he met Hui Yuhao's gaze. He said calmly, I'm just pissed off about that damned old woman. He felt a little uneasy after saying that. Initially, he thought Yi Chen was unwilling to sleep in the middle room. Unexpectedly, Yi Chen nodded. Sure. Yi Chen led Iron Tower into room 444 after saying that. Dai Wei was stunned and could not react at that moment. Shao Dai, look at Mr. Yi. He doesn't believe in such things. Old Shen sighed softly and walked in. Dai Wei's face alternated between green and white. He snorted coldly in the end, and was the last one to walk into room 445 on the right. Room 444. The entire room was less than 50 square meters. Although the decorations were simple, it had all sorts of facilities. The only downside was that there was only one bed. This room doesn't look like it's been hung. Old Shen chuckled out loud and subsequently said, Mr. Yi, the both of you can sleep on the bed. I'll sleep on the floor. I'm getting old, and I can't sleep on the Simmons. Old Shen, you're an elder. How can you let an elder sleep on the floor? You can sleep on the bed. My bodyguard and I will sleep on the floor. Yi Chen shook his head lightly. Before Old Shen could reject him, he walked to the closet and picked up a pile of cotton. He laid them on the floor and lay alone. Iron Tower stood still at the door. Old Shen felt a little warm inside. He looked at Iron Tower by instinct and was rather doubtful. Doesn't your bodyguard sleep? Moreover, I don't think he said anything along the way. He's my bodyguard. His responsibility is to protect me 24 hours a day. He doesn't need to sleep. Yi Chen chuckled softly and said, Also, he's a man of few words. Just get used to it, Old Shen. Old Shen did not think much about it. Just when he was going to bed after removing his jacket, there was a knock on the door. Who is it? Old Shen had his guard up. A laugh came from outside. It's me, the hotel owner. I'm here to bring you guys some food. Old Shen then walked over to open the door. As expected, he saw the man with the birthmark standing at the door with a tray in his hand. There were 5 bowls of rice on it, and there was a layer of stir-fried pork with peppers on top. The owner said kindly, Guys, I know that you guys came from out of town. I guess you guys haven't eaten much along the way. Coincidentally, I have extra food at home, so I'll give it to you guys for free. At that moment, Dai Wei and Di Jing opened the door and walked out after hearing the noise. Dai Wei complained as soon as he saw the owner. Hey boss, what's wrong with you guys? You're doing business here, but you got people to burn joss paper at our door. Nope. Since when did I get people to burn joss paper at your door? The owner looked confused. Seeing that the owner was denying it, Dai Wei extended his arm and pointed at room 444. He said with a scoff, "We saw your mother burning joss paper at the door of this room when we were going upstairs earlier. She said that it was for your daughter. She even said that your daughter hanged herself in this room." That's right. Boss, you're not a nice person. Why didn't you tell us earlier that someone died in this room? Di Jing looked rather upset too. If she had known earlier, she would not have stayed here no matter what. The hotel owner said in a daze, "My mother died 5 years ago. My daughter didn't hang herself. She died in a car accident. Are you guys mistaken?" Everyone was stunned as soon as he said that. The few of them were stunned. Di Jing said while her face turned pale, "Then, who was the old lady who burned joss paper earlier? There's no old lady here." The hotel owner shook his head angrily and said, "There's only one exit on the second floor. I've been guarding the first floor, but I didn't see anyone else entering or leaving the room apart from you guys. Maybe your eyes are playing tricks on you." Even old Shun, who was the calmest among them, could no longer sit still. He said, "It's impossible. We all saw it. Then, someone must have sneaked up here when I wasn't paying attention." The hotel owner acknowledged and said, "To be honest, someone did die in room 444, but that was last month. It was a conflict between two lovers, and then the woman took it too hard and hanged herself. The woman's family came here every day to make a scene, and I had to pay quite a lot of money for it." Chapter 314. He looked rather guilty as he spoke to this point. "Guys, it's my fault for hiding this from you guys. I don't mind if you guys want to check out. I'll refund you all the money. If you guys are willing to stay, I'll charge you one less room." "Boss, how far is the nearest county from here?" Di Jing asked, unwilling to give up. "About 100 kilometers away. You guys can decide if you want to stay or not." The hotel owner turned around and went downstairs. After he left, Di Jing could not help but look at Dai Wei. "Dai Wei, how far can the car go with the gas?" 50 kilometers at the most," Dai Wei said. Old Shun eventually said, "There's nothing we can do then. We can only stay here. However, to be safe, we'll all sleep in the same room. Xiaoti's a girl, so you'll sleep on the bed." Di Jing's expression softened. She returned to her room, picked up the blanket, and walked into room 444. Dai Wei did the same. Since the few of them were staying in the same room, Di Jing did not even dare to change her clothes. She laid on the bed directly. Meanwhile, Dai Wei made a bed next to Yi Chen's. There was only so much space on the ground. Yi Chen let old Shin sleep on his bed. He then moved a stool to sit aside and closed his eyes to rest. He began cultivating secretly. To him, it was more comfortable to sit than to lie down. Old Shin said, feeling sorry for him, "Mr. Yi, why don't you come and lie with me? Be careful not to catch a cold." Di Jing was a little embarrassed. After all, theoretically, the bed belonged to Yi Chen. Now that she had taken it, he had to sit there until dawn. "Old Shin, didn't you see that he's resting with his eyes closed? He looks like he's cultivating. Perhaps our Mr. Yi is a martial arts expert. Why would he be afraid of catching a cold?" Dai Wei said in a sarcastic tone. Old Shun and Di Jing glared at him as soon as he was done speaking. Just when Old Shun was going to say something, someone knocked on the door again. "Xiaoti, open the door. The hotel owner must be asking if we're staying or leaving," Old Shun said as he turned around. With so many people together, Dai Wei was not afraid anymore. He mustered up his courage and went to open the door. However, he realized that there was no one outside. The corridor was quiet. Most importantly, there was an extra stack of money at the door, and it was a thick stack of RMB. It added up to at least 100,000 yuan. That's strange. I clearly heard someone knocking on the door. Why isn't anyone here? Moreover, there's a stack of money on the ground, Old Shin said in confusion. Maybe the person next door is knocking. Dai Wei smiled and bent down to pick up the stack of money on the ground. He said joyfully, "Don't tell me we're all lucky today? I don't know if it's fake or not." Just when his hand was about to touch the stack of money, Yi Chen suddenly opened his eyes and said, "I advise you not to touch this money." "Why?" Dai Wei asked subconsciously. Yi Chen smiled and said nothing. Dai Wei smirked. "Are you stupid? You don't want money that's delivered to your doorstep? There are at least 100,000 here, not 100 or 200. Only an idiot wouldn't want it." Although the occupation of geography sounded fancy, the income was not high. Meanwhile, 100,000 yuan was half a year's income for him. He picked up the stack of money on the ground directly after saying that. He then closed the door and returned to his room. He took out a piece of paper and studied it carefully under the light. "Look at the watermark and the photochromic ink. It doesn't look like it's fake." Dai Wei passed a piece of paper to Old Shin while looking at it. He said, "Old Shin, please take a look at it for me." Old Shin did not take it. Instead, he shook his head and said, "Xiao Dai, someone must have dropped this money by accident. It's ill-gotten. I advise you to put it back." Dai Wei was rather upset before he was done speaking. "Old Shin, why do you have the same thought as someone? I didn't steal it or rob it. I picked it up with my own ability. Why should I put it back?" Old Shin sighed softly. He knew that he could not persuade him, so he stopped talking and closed his eyes to sleep. Yi Chen secretly shook his head after glancing at Dai Wei, who was counting the money. Dai Wei counted the stack of money and realized that it was exactly 100,000 yuan. There was no more and no less. He then took out his phone to search for information on the internet. After confirming that it was real money, he looked at Yi Chen and Old Shen by instinct. He could not help but smile. "You guys don't want it. I'm the only one who wants it. That's great." "Ah!" Di Jing's devastating shriek came from the room all of a sudden when it was almost dawn. "What happened?" Old Shen was the first to wake up. He took out his phone immediately and shone it on Di Jing, who was on the bed. She was shaking while sitting on the bed. Meanwhile, her phone had fallen onto the ground, but the flashlight was still on. Dai Wei woke up too. "What's wrong?" "Dai Wei, why you?" Di Jing pointed at Dai Wei and stammered. Fear filled her face. Old Shen shone the flashlight at Dai Wei by instinct. He was almost scared to death just by looking at it. Dai Wei was wearing red clothes that were as red as blood. One would think it was a red suit at first glance. Upon closer look, it was a red shroud. Dai Wei looked down and his face shook. "How did this happen? When did I wear a shroud? Who changed my clothes for me? Turn on the light. Turn on the light." He was wearing a blue checkered shirt. How did it turn into a shroud? "I was going to the toilet with the flashlight on my phone earlier. When the flashlight shone on Dai Wei, I saw that you're wearing a shroud." He got up to press the switch after saying that. However, he realized that the light would not turn on no matter how hard he tried. "Is the power out?" Dai Wei fell onto the ground in shock. Old Shen, who was the oldest among them, was the first to calm down. He said after taking a deep breath in, "Xiao Dai, why are you wearing a shroud for the dead?" "I have no idea. I've been sleeping and I've never gone out. Moreover, where did I get a shroud from?" Dai Wei said while shaking while trying to take off the shroud. At that moment Yi Chen, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke. "I'm warning you not to take it off. Are you crazy?" Dai Wei shouted at him. "Wait." Old Shin suddenly stopped Dai Wei and said, "Xiao Dai, don't take it off yet. Let's listen to what Mr. Yi has to say." After the series of events, Old Shin realized that Yi Chen's words seemed strange at the critical moment, but he seemed to be a prophet. For example, he had advised them not to stay in this hotel earlier, but they did not listen to him. Dai Wei and Di Jing looked at Yi Chen at the same time. Yi Chen said calmly, "Show me the money you picked up last night." "What does it have to do with the money I picked up?" Dai Wei scoffed, thinking that Yi Chen was after his money. However, he took out his bag after thinking about it. He then opened it to take a look. His entire person was instantly stunned. His face was filled with fear. Cold sweat was dripping out of his body. Old Shen rubbed his eyes and inhaled sharply. How did it turn into hell notes?